Hello and welcome to the For We Are Many podcast. My name is Rob.
Hi, I'm Trisha.
And I'm Andy.
And this is the current event stream for the 24th of June, 2022. So there's been a lot of shit going on this week. I've been driving across the country. So, I guess let me give you my quick take and then you fill me in on if I'm tracking with this, right? So the January 6th trials have been all over everywhere, right? Everybody's talking about subverting democracy and et cetera, et cetera. But yet the government continues to crack down harder on leftists than they do on people who literally tried to overthrow the government.
Well, yeah.
Then today, rulings came down eliminating Miranda Rights and overturning Roe v. Wade. Right. And then from what I hear, at least on NPR, because, my options are limited while I'm staring out the windshield just fucking driving. But according to NPR, there has been, protests happening on the ground all over the country pretty much instantaneously, including in D.C. at the Supreme Court, which has been fortified like a bunker since the draft leaked almost 2 months ago.
Which I find ironic because they want to control who's inside them.
Well played.
Well played. Of course, I want to take a moment to, ask everybody to like and share the stream on whatever platform you're watching on. That helps boost our reach.
Absolutely. I can take a moment to do so.
I pretty much plan on doing that once we... So are we going to just dive right into Roe v. Wade, or do we want to start with... Do we want to get the small shit out of the way, or
Are you asking if we're going to have some foreplay? That's
yes.
Careful now. The right to privacy in the bedroom is also on the chopping block next, right along with, gay marriage and right to any kind of contraceptive.
Obviously, I mean sensible foreplay. Before the missionary, you have to, go through the process. Maybe do a little dance. I don't know.
Oh, goodness. Now my brain's playing old music. Do a little dance. Make a little love.
I guess if we're going to dive right into the Supreme Court stuff. So this was Emily's idea, and this is not something that we normally do. But in our talking points this week, she put together some excerpts from a Fox News article versus an NPR article. And, we're going to kind of... Well, I mean, the Fox News one is embarrassing, straight up. I don't know how these people are yeah. I mean, if you want, there's a video. I can show you a video if you'd like.
Okay, let's make our ears bleed.
Go for it.
Right, same. I'm like, okay, show it.
In Emily's words, there is a video at the top of the article that is rather embarrassing for those involved.
You'll have to see it.
Yeah, let them bear that weight. It's not on us. We're just showing you what's happening.
Well, right, yeah. Is that... Yeah, it's up. Okay. There we go.
The case regarding Roe versus Wade is now in. All right, so this is the case that involves Roe v. Wade, established 49 years ago. The decision is out. It's been issued by Justice Alito. And Roe v. Wade, according to our reports from the U.S. Supreme Court and our own Shannon Bream, is that Roe v. Wade has been overturned and the question of abortion has been returned to the states. It's been 50 years since that landmark Supreme Court ruling, and conservatives in government and in law have been working for 50 years to overturn it, and this is the live reaction now in real time outside the U.S. Supreme Court in our nation's capital.
What you're seeing there are people who are overjoyed about the decision in this particular shot here. And then you also have people who are obviously going to be dismayed about this. This leak happened about 56 days ago or so, 55 days ago, and they've been waiting for this. We do have some great team coverage for you. We believe, Shannon Bream, are you available to us now?
I am, and as you know, we now get these by computer. In the old days, we would get the hard copies and we would run them down the steps, but the initial first line of the read of the syllabus, which is not the actual opinion, but it is the summary of the decision, it says that Roe and Casey are overruled. And the voting that we thought was together, it looks like it has stayed together. Justice Alito has authored the opinion. He is joined by Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Barrett. There are a couple of concurrences. The one that we're most interested in is going to be the one by the Chief Justice. And we'll see what he had to write, because we've thought all along he would not be a vote to overturn Roe. But that he would be somebody who might want to try to find some middle ground. That Mississippi law, which bans most abortions after 15 weeks, that he would essentially probably uphold that, but not want to go that extra step for Roe.
You're muted. I can't hear you.
My bad. So I don't need to play the whole video to get the point across, right? Imagine being a woman and hating women that much.
Right.
I mean, that one chick was like losing her shit, like, oh!
Yeah, I mean, cults will do that to you.
Isn't that the truth?
Funny, because I just shared the stream to Cult 45.
Cult
Facebook
45.
Yep.
Yeah. So Justice Alito wrote in the opinion, "We end this opinion where we began. Abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule those decisions and return that authority to the people and their elected representatives." Alito's opinion began with an exploration and criticism of Roe v. Wade, and it's holding that while states have a, quote, legitimate interest in protecting potential life, this interest was not strong enough to prohibit abortions before the time of fetal viability, understood to be at about 23 weeks into pregnancy. He went on to say, quote, the court did not expand the basis did not explain the basis for this line, and even abortion supporters have found it hard to defend Roe's reasoning.
Human rights.
I mean, or even if it was just, I would even be okay if it was just on a privacy grounds, right? I mean, that is usually the context that I hear it in. What the health care that a woman receives is not between anybody but a woman and her doctor.
Right. Not the rest of the population around her, not the fucking assholes that have been elected into some kind of political office. No, it's your personal private fucking decision whether or not you would like to be an incubator.
Oh, hi, Zach. Welcome
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Hey,
welcome.
good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Andy. Long time.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, Trisha. Not such a long time, but good to see you as well.
Good to see you too.
Man, we got 4 people on the show tonight.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Is Amanda going to be joining us too, I hope?
Yeah. She's just she's enjoying some dessert, but then she'll be on.
Awesome.
Debbie in the comments, so this is a sad day for women.
Sad day for America, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and Justice Thomas hinted, well, not hinted, straight up said that they're going to be going after other landmark rulings that are along the same lines. So that brings into question contraceptives as a whole, interracial marriage, segregation. I'm missing something.
Gay marriage,
Oh yeah, gay
privacy in
marriage.
the bedroom, the whole 9 yards. Give me a second and I'll grab the list of those rulings. I know I have them in here because I saved them.
But yeah, I mean, I've just kind of been like switching. I've been driving all day. For those of you that are just joining us and didn't already hear that, I've been driving all day. So I've just kind of been, I have XM radio. I've been just kind of switching between stations. I've got MSNBC, CNN, NPR, Fox News.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think that's important about this decision and like what you're talking about with like this concern of precedent, which is really why they can, if they overturn Roe v. Wade, they can go after these different things. We have an entire court system that's designed around what's called common law, which is basically that, well, we ruled this one way before, so therefore we can rule these other ways. Based on that, is if that makes sense, then these make sense based on that. And it's basically this weird game of like Jenga, that everything keeps stacking on one another, and we're pulling out one of the pretty low pieces right here. And like, it's weird because like we saw with Trump being elected, like this domino effect happened politically. Now, because we're one of the few countries that has a common law system, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out on a bigger stage, because of the fact that like civil law countries can't just turn like we can. And it's going to create a very stark difference between the United States and the rest of the world in a way I don't think we've ever seen in our lives. And I say us, I mean like anyone, like a world superpower that was under common law that goes down this road, where we kind of regress in this very fundamental way. It'll be interesting. And like, we brought up that these other things are kind of on the chopping block, and it raises a really big question of how easy it is to do these things. And what does our democracy really look like then, if that's the case, where a one precedent change can basically dismantle 70 years of progression.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And speaking of the Jenga pieces, there, I did find a list here that Clarence Thomas filed for a concurring opinion to Dobbs, calling for the court to reconsider Griswold v. Connecticut, Obergefell v. Hodges, and Lawrence v. Texas. Those are the ones covering your right to have access to basic contraception. So that's hormonal, that's condoms, the whole fucking works.
It's like Thomas was just sitting on the court since like the 90s, whenever he was confirmed, just biding his time. He was one of the least speaking Supreme Court justices of all of them. He rarely said words when hearing any sort of case. He just sat there all this time, biding his time for this moment where he could just unravel everything in one fell swoop. And lo and behold, as soon as they have a 5-3 majority now, then it all just comes into place, and he starts dismantling everything.
And I think when we think about like these historical changes, obviously this is unique because, again, this is going backwards versus like the, whatever you want to call it, the quote unquote arc of progress with like slavery or whatever it might have been, and having these battles over what's the law. It's a different narrative to go back in a very fundamental way, and how we engage with it is going to be really different than anything. And I don't think we can underestimate what that looks like and how different that's going to be than other battles that, at least in our lifetime, looking across the room, everyone's under probably about 50-ish, that we've never experienced. So it's going to be interesting.
Definitely. Definitely. And, you know, I know that's a common way that Americans tend to look at things is we just have a, you know, it's like Martin Luther King Jr. said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Well, in terms of just like who gets to be a person, who gets to have basic rights, yes, for the past, you know, few decades, we have been gaining. But since Reagan smashed the air traffic controllers union, in terms of workers' rights, in terms of who holds the balance of power, that's only been eroded this entire time. So we've been sliding back this whole time since then. This has been the neoliberal experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Debbie poses an excellent question of who's going to take care of all these kids these women will be forced to have. Look,
I mean, I think we know the answer to that.
Yes.
Right. Fucking nobody.
Right.
We've already got countless kids in the system who, you know, have been waiting to get adopted and they're not getting adopted. So this whole right-wing extremist talking point of just put them up for adoption is bullshit, and the evidence shows it. Like, where are the motherfuckers who say that? Why aren't they lining up to adopt these kids? They're not.
Right.
They don't shit. This is
Right.
not pro-life. This is pro-forced birth, pro-control of women's bodies. There's nothing pro-life about it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
If they gave a fuck, they would give a fuck about those already living.
Debbie also said that the court is illegitimate. Okay, so like I'm not trying to advocate for our system of government or economics at all, but I do want to say that the only reason that the court has the supermajority that they have is because the GOP blocked Obama's fucking nomination for Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And then they handed him the rubber stamp on 3 fucking nominations.
3 of the most reactionary motherfuckers who've ever sat on the bench.
Right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that being said, we'll also be talking about the January 6th trials later, but I also, you know, just want to point out that the feds still come down harder on fucking leftists feeding the community than they did on those motherfuckers.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that whole thing, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trisha.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, all they're doing with this shit show as far as the January 6th stuff is tightening legislation even more where they can come at us harder
Yep.
for what people on the extreme right wing did.
That's the infuriating thing is they're making this big show of it, and they're pulling forward all these credible allegations of fraud and collusion and all these things that should be treasonous crimes, and yet they said from the outset that they're not going to. There's not going to be no indictments flowing from any of this trial, or this hearing. It's not even a trial; it's just a hearing. So they again, the Democrats are just standing on principle, so they can look at how terrible the Republicans are. Oh, let's wag our finger at them in condemnation. Maybe we'll have some more marches on Washington, but that'll be the end of it, and then we'll just business as usual.
Yeah, which, that being said, I heard on NPR today that there has been, you know, confronting groups of protesters at the Supreme Court all day.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any videos from it or anything. If you guys have anything.
Funny that, yeah. Should look it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I think if we look at the bigger picture, I think an important question for us to ask is like, why is this the narrative that we're seeing move forward? And by narrative, I mean like why is the GOP so particularly focused on this right now? Given, you know, if you're to look at Trump was not a religious person. He doesn't give a shit about abortion rights, so it doesn't matter to him whether or not they are pushed, you know, made illegal or not. So why is this the narrative that we're seeing? And I think that's a really important question to totally understand, because if we think about it, especially you know, for folks that are more like libertarian left, we have a lot in common with the libertarian right, where they should be standing up beside us against this. And if they're not,
You would think.
what is the missing piece, and why is that so significant? Because if we don't understand why people who have very similar values to us aren't aligning with us in this common fight, then we're missing something important, and we need to figure out what that is because we do need genuine solidarity across political beliefs. And I think that gets lost a lot of times in these conversations.
Um,
I think it has to do with the implications. This isn't their end goal. This is just the beginning. They want to go after gay marriage. They want to go after segregation. They want to go after contraceptives. This is much deeper than just an abortion.
Sure, but again, to go back to like libertarian right, like if you are a don't tread on me right winger
Small
that
government,
believes you should be able to have guns and the memes you see,
right?
Why are they not standing up for this? And if they're not, then like what is the piece that's missing? Because as you said, this is the canary in the coal mine for what's going on. And if that's not obvious to people, then like it's time to wake up. And if it is obvious and they don't care, why don't they care?
Well, this doesn't apply to all libertarian right-wing people, obviously, but there is a lot of the right-wing libertarian groups that have been infiltrated by white supremacists. We've seen this with like the Pat Soches, people like that. That literally part of why they are giving no fucks and probably actually celebrating right now is because part of their rhetoric is this replacement theory bullshit, that they literally think that the birth rates dropping is white genocide, which is fucking bullshit. Genocide means mass murdering people. It doesn't mean...
No, though, these are the same people that believe that the Soviet Union killed 11 bajillion people and Stalin ate all the grain.
Yeah, but their idiocy goes so far as to think that they actually have an obligation to force women to give birth to lift the white birth rate back up. That's part of their mind fuck there.
Yeah.
And that's part of why they have actually been taking the right-wing extremists' side when it comes to stuff like this, because they really think that they have the right and the obligation to force women to give birth and, I don't know, lift the birth rate back up. It's fucking ridiculous. It's insane. Anybody with any fucking, awareness would be like, wow, that sounds like total shit. But this is the type of stuff that I see them carrying on in insane rants about in their white supremacist fucking groups. And it's so fucked. They don't give a shit about human rights. They really think that having less of a majority in the population is white genocide, and they're gung-ho for forcing women to be barefoot and pregnant for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So I think there definitely is that reactionary crossover with some right-wing libertarians. They don't like government, but they don't really care if government is hurting other people than themselves. That's just totally fine with them. I guess they just don't care that much, or they have some prejudices of their own. So as long as they're, being carried out, then they don't care. But I think for some libertarians, or I should still say right-wing libertarians, I think they have just a incorrect framing of what freedom is. They only see freedom in absolute terms, as in, what am I able to do as a citizen? And these people tend to come from more privileged positions, so they have more opportunities just already, and they just don't like anyone telling them they can't run their business however they want, pay whatever wages they want, that sort of thing. So these are kind of like the small business libertarians. So they only frame freedom in terms of like their absolute amount of freedom that they personally have. They don't seem to understand that in order for freedom to really work as a principle, it has to be balanced among everyone else, so that the classic saying, "My right to swing my arms ends at the tip of your nose." So they don't see how anyone else's freedom could ever be affected by them exercising their freedom. So
I mean, I think that like leftists and the libertarian right just look at freedom differently. Like you were saying, they're all like, "Oh, I have the freedom to do this, the freedom to do that," but we don't have any freedoms from. Freedom from dying due to lack of access to healthcare, or freedom from starving to death if you don't make enough at your job, or freedom from homelessness.
Yeah. I think the only freedoms from that they really care about is freedom from regulation, freedom from anyone telling what they can do on their particular. And these people tend to be landowners, so they basically just want whatever goes on their land or their property to be okay, because it's kind of like, I've heard it framed as neo-feudalism. They just want to be the king of their own little fiefdom and have no one be able to tell them what to do, and everyone else's freedom is just freedom to go on their land or work for their company or not, and that's where everyone else's freedom begins and ends. So
that. They don't have a true understanding of freedom, because that concept, ethically speaking, that your rights end where the next person's rights begin, fucking escapes.
Yeah, but that raises a question of, okay, if you are, I know generically or genuinely speaking, we're talking about, you know, right libertarians being white men, which I think is probably overwhelmingly the case. But it does raise the question about, okay, well, if there's no abortion, that also includes when you knock up your girlfriend. So it does have some very personal implications. Just, unlike a lot of other things that we've brought up at this point, the idea of the right to not starve to death, and all these other very fundamental human rights. This one's maybe a little bit less up front and center, because a lot of people don't think it'll happen to them. But it's an interesting point for the right libertarian side to not be engaging with this conversation in a way that they should be. And I do think that a lot of them, even if they don't come forward and say, I disagree with this decision, because they're so infiltrated in the right wing movement, whatever you want to call it, the scene of right politics. There's a real opportunity, I think, for the left right now to be engaging with those people that are right wing. Again, the I want to be able to grow my weed and protect it with my guns kind of people, that I think genuinely aren't necessarily bad people, but they are distrustful and they don't like the idea. They like the idea of nonviolence, because they don't understand a world where societal violence, in the sense of like protests and things like that, are valid, and they think everyone should be able to just lift themselves up because they can't see the benefits they've had. They're not bad people, they just don't understand things like intersectionality. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to be making inroads with those people and trying to say, this will affect you because this affects everyone. Unless you're super rich, this is going to affect everyone, because especially with the technology that exists today, if you live in a state that is going to ban abortion, the technology exists today to know whether or not you're going out of state to go get an abortion. And there are states that have already proposed making that illegal, to leave your state to go get an abortion where it's legal. And that raises some very valid question. I'll get to you. I'll let you speak, and just let me finish my sentence.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Otherwise I'll forget. And that raises an important question of, all right, there's no, unless you're super rich, for the average middle class person, this is going to affect you. And libertarians are by and large middle class. They're not usually upper class.
Right.
Because there just simply aren't many upper
Very
class.
Good.
Yeah, agreed. So, like, on that same note, the libertarians love the free market until they hate it, right? So companies like Starbucks and Disney are offering to transport employees out of state if they need an abortion to be able to get one safely, right? And then now Fox News is like talking about how that's not their place, but like, what?
Chick-fil-A.
Right.
And honestly, like, that whole conversation, I think, is honestly mostly a misdirect by employers, with the understanding that states are going to do what I just said, and they're giving them a giant like opening to say, see, they're going to do this, so making it illegal in our state's pointless. We need to have more strict laws, blah blah blah. And honestly, I think for a lot of employers, it's just a PR move because of the labor shortage. Because I don't know, you killed off most of the workforce during COVID. Like, you need people.
I mean, over 1 million people died of COVID, and then what was it, like 2 million or so retired early due to COVID?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've got us doing 2 or 3 jobs and still pay us for half of one.
Right. That.
Oh, but it's the inflation, though, Rob. It's all due to inflation. It's not their fault. They're entitled to a certain profit, you see, and that profit has to go up every year.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not here to talk about the labor theory of values. So.
But I don't know. The only solution that I can think of when it comes to the states saying we're going to make it illegal for you to travel for an abortion is, okay, instead of just traveling to go there, get your abortion and come back, travel permanently, fucking move to somewhere where you still actually have ownership over your own fucking body, because let's just get down to the nitty gritty of it when it comes to human rights. If you don't fucking own yourself, you don't have shit. So they can watch their entire populations fucking disperse and leave and go somewhere where you actually still have control over your own fucking bodily agency.
I think, I'm not trying to get down on your phrasing at all, Trisha, but I think bodily autonomy is the way that we should be putting it on the left, rather than owning yourself, because the right libertarians have had a lot of problems with that concept of owning yourself, because then if you own yourself, you should be able to sell yourself into slavery. You should be able to sell yourself for less. So just a little, and maybe it's a little nitpicky, but yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So Micropower 8 said printing money is greater than or equal to inflation. And I just want to point out where all this money that was printed went. Right?
Right.
Wall Street. Okay, business owners.
It's all the layabouts, though, Rob.
Defense industry. It's not our $1,200 checks, if that's what you're implying.
No, everyone is still living off of those $1,200 checks they got half a year ago. That's why no one wants to work.
I bought one. Yeah.
Oh my God, I heard an employer bitching about the fucking unemployment checks. Like, oh, we need to cancel unemployment altogether. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Time out. If the like $160 a week that Arizona gives out is more than whatever you're paying your employees, it's not the unemployment problem.
I mean, it's so hard to get unemployment in the first place. Like,
yeah, it's so means tested.
If you get fired,
he's in, or they are, I guess I should say, in the EU, based on this last comment. The EU have printed over since 2008 money so that we now have now 700% so much money as 2008. Weird that wording confused me, but it's the same way here. We just keep printing money and printing money and printing money and printing money, and then we are supposed to pay it back with interest. That's how the Federal Reserve works. But how can we ever pay it back if there's more debt than there is money?
Well, there's such an easy solution to that. It's tax the rich. If there's too much money in circulation, the way to do it is to destroy it. The easiest way to destroy it is to just take a bunch from the rich. And we can do that if we want. It's just that the rich have lobbyists that prevent that from happening. But that's it. Too much money in circulation because you're printing too much, destroy it. That's all that taxation is. It's not as though when you tax money at the federal level, it then goes into another bank account and then gets spent out as welfare checks or whatever. It gets destroyed. That's how the process works. So, or we just raise interest rates for banks. I mean, there's ways to curb inflation without having to stick it to the even the middle class, but the lower class.
Well, I mean, even the interest rate increases. I mean, I don't know if they actually did it, but 0.75%, being like the fifth interest rate jacking up this year. I mean, I don't know. And then the fact that the media is all like, oh yeah, we're definitely not going to have a recession this year. And I mean, like, I can't help but like read that with a winky face. We're not going to have a recession this year.
And like, I mean, you're kind of alluding to it as well. It kind of seems like the next giant economic crisis is being teed up right now, that being another housing bubble burst. Housing prices have gone up in a lot of areas. I think on average, housing prices have gone up more than the average family's income, like entire year income in just a year's time.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point where no one's going to be able to afford houses. No one's going to be able to enter the market. The only people that will be able to buy a new house are the people that have houses already. So I mean, that just grinds housing to a halt. And then we're looking at another repeat of 2008. And if this time Biden is holding the reins, then this really sets the stage for a reactionary to come in and say, I can, whether it's Trump again, whether it's DeSantis, who in many ways sounds like a worse, more effective Trump.
Or yeah, actually, I agree with that 100%. He would be way more effective than Trump. At first, I was like, oh, he's just another Trump Republican. But like, I've actually heard him speak a few times, and he's way more put together than Trump. Not that that takes much. But I mean, when we did our first ever live stream on January 6th, that was one of the things that we talked about. Was like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, this was kind of terrifying, but in the end, they broke into the Capitol and like sniffed AOC's shoes, right? Mm-hmm. What happens if an effective fascist leads a fucking coup?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's actually something I had talked about on my own podcast before the election. I laid out 4 scenarios in my prediction, and I was unfortunately too accurate. In that I had said that I thought a Trump coup was going to happen, and I was not confident that it would lose. And fortunately, Trump was less effective than I thought. But if Biden was to hold the office, that he would do nothing, and we would be in this position, and someone like DeSantis would step in as that role. And that's what we seem to be staring down the barrel of. And that's honestly frightening, more frightening than Trump running again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think people like we're talking about January 6th, how easily that could have been something more significant than it was. Just a few things had gone differently, how quickly that could have escalated. And we laugh at the idea of like the 3%ers, but the validity of their argument is that it does not take a lot of people for things to change for a lot of other people. And those people don't have to be smart. And I think that's the part that we lose a lot, is you don't have to be smart to be effective. Trump is a really great example of that. And to dismiss it because of that lack of, critical theory or insight or whatever intellect, is a weakness on our own side, where we assume because we're right and we have all this evidence, that means like, why would anyone disagree? And this is all I need to know is why I'm right, as opposed to why do other people think they're right, and why do we need to engage with them on their level, because we don't know how that will play out if they continue down the path that they're already on of whether it's right-wing extremism or whatever. And that is our job, to engage in that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Debbie just brought up, how they're scaring mothers to death because 3 formula factories have suddenly burned down. That reminds me that fucking happened, right? The formula shortage is still a thing. It seems like we're coming out of it, but it's still a thing. So let me get this straight. We're in the middle of a formula shortage. Food is exploding in price. Nobody can afford the rent to begin with. And then we're going to force women to have more fucking kids.
Gas prices go up. And as the link points out that I just posted there, half of Americans don't make enough to rent a 1-bedroom apartment. The average you need for a 1-bedroom apartment is about $20 an hour. So thinking of even a 2-income household, if you both are making minimum wage, that doesn't even come close to $20 an hour.
Right.
So we have housing crisis, rent crisis, food crisis. We're being hit on basically every necessity. Transportation crisis. Educational crisis. People can't pay off their student loans. I have had my student loans for over a decade now. Have not even paid off my undergraduate ones yet.
And on the food crisis tip, add to it that I believe at the last count it was 19 different food processing facilities have also burnt the fuck down. So,
Also, egg facilities. To the extent where when we did our grocery shopping for this road trip that we just went on, right? Like the regular cheap fucking Walmart eggs were $3.06 a dozen, but yet, you know, the cage-free brown eggs were $3 a dozen. Like, that's where we're at. Buy eggs from your local farmers.
right.
First of all, because the conditions that those birds are in and those mass factory farms just lead to mass outbreaks of bird flu, which I think is why all these egg facilities have been burning down in the first place. I think it's insurance claims.
Yeah, almost certainly. It's the same thing with the inflation being blamed for everything. They will come up with any excuse to just gouge more, get more profit, get more for doing nothing, and then blame the working class for being exactly that, saying that all of us just want a handout. All of us are just looking to live off the government dole. When really it's them who lives off our
I do want
efforts.
to point out something while we're talking about Roe v. Wade, though, right? The Russian Revolution was started with a women's march. I'm just saying.
Right.
Laura in the comments said, I'm a public school teacher on unpaid leave from long COVID, and I know so many women struggling with it. It's going to explode. And that comment is what primed my women's march starting revolution comment. Anyway, sorry.
Well, the thing is, at this point, it's like how much effectiveness is going to come even from just marching unless you have Molotovs in your hand. What the fuck?
Yeah, I think that does bring up the question of like where do we go from here? You know, we've been doing the same thing that we've been doing since George Floyd and before. It doesn't make much meaningful difference, and when it does, once the limelight's off of it, things kind of go back to normal, as we saw in Minnesota after the police stations were burned down. Things are basically back to how they were before. And when does that moment of civility kind of permanently end? And I feel like we're getting close to that.
I feel like it ends wherever we draw the line.
Yeah, I would hope so, but the left doesn't have a good contemporary history of drawing that line.
I agree with that too.
Right. You'd think that right now, with loss of bodily autonomy itself, that we would be drawing that line in the sand really fucking hard and setting it on fire, filling it with gasoline and setting it on fire. Just saying. Like, what the fuck are we to do here when we are dealing with yet another example of why reformist bullshit doesn't fucking work, because it can always be walked back by a fascist that comes into office next?
Yeah.
The Democrats are already out in force saying Roe v. Wade is on the ballot. Vote for us in November.
Like, right now, from my perspective, as a very pissed off female, what I want to do is I want to go after their Viagra and I want to go after their Cialis. How does it feel, dick? Like, I'm sorry. It just...
No, you're good.
You want to go after my birth control? You want to come for my birth control, which I need so I can function in society? I'm going to come after your penis pills. Oh, they're for your heart? Too bad.
Right?
You can't have them now, dick. How's that feel?
In addition to that, how about we come for their organs? Okay? Like, you want to tell us that we are obligated to use our fucking bodily organs to create and sustain and incubate another life? Well, I think if you're going to vote yes on that bullshit, then you should be first signed up that if anybody needs one of your organs for transplant, you're now obligated to save their life too. Where's your fucking liver? where's your fucking kidneys? Fuck you, sign them up. Because, you know, you think that bodily autonomy doesn't apply to a uterus. Well, guess what? It no longer gets to apply to your fucking organs either. Whose
Right.
life are you going to save, motherfuckers?
Or a mandatory snip.
Mandatory.
What the heck?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, it's reversible.
That's right.
When you can prove that you're of value enough to society to contribute to forming a life, you can regain full function of your penis. But until then, we're going to cut you off.
Yep, and it can only be undone. Let's add this clause too, that snip can only be undone if you have the written consent of a woman who fucking agrees, or anybody else with a uterus who agrees to be impregnated by your ass.
Yeah. You have to have someone sign on to receive your dick before you can have it back.
Wonder how much they like fucking laws controlling other people's bodily autonomy.
They would lose their shit. They would lose their damn minds. Oh, you can't do that. It's different. How is it different?
It's really not. If you think everybody's fucking skin suit exists under some obligatory fucking concept of you must preserve any other life possible with your skin suit, fuck you, where's your organs? Sign them up. If that's what it's going to take to get these motherfuckers to grasp that it's not okay to try to govern over what somebody else does with their fucking organs, then so be it.
Yeah. Well, and like we've already been discussing, it's not like they're planning on stopping here either.
Right.
I mean, Thomas laid out in his addition to the majority opinion the cases that they plan on going for next, or the rulings, I should say, that they are going for next.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right to contraception at the top of them.
Like, they're getting ready to reverse gay marriage. It's like, leave the alphabet mafia alone. They're not hurting you.
Right.
They have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, and this again goes back to what I said before about why are the right libertarians not siding with us? I mean, I again, I'll go back to the meme that you see. It's like, I want my gay neighbors to have guns to protect their weed plants, and it's like, okay, well,
right,
there's something going on that maybe you should be concerned about in regards to your gay neighbors, and maybe it's time to show up. And as much as it doesn't feel like we should be the ones having to do that outreach, we also kind of do have to do that outreach and try to build inroads with those people, because, like you had said, there are plenty of white nationalists that are willing to do that legwork, and if we don't, then they only hear one other alternative. And I think everyone's pretty aware the way things are going right now is not sustainable, and it's either we go out and engage with them, or they're gonna be told, listen, it's not your fault, it's because all of these people that aren't white that are here.
Right.
And like that, we need them. They need us, and we need them.
That's a very good point. Reactionaries are always willing to be like, those people are mean to you? Well, we accept you for who you are, exactly who you are. And you know what? It's also not your fault. It's all of this group that we can go beat up right now. So that's a very powerful way to indoctrinate people and make them feel powerful and bring them into your movement. So I agree, Andy. I think we should be talking to these right libertarians, because I think a lot of them are basically just confused socialists that haven't thought their ideas through enough, that could easily be turned to saying, yeah, I don't like government, but I also don't want people to be hurt by government or by private companies either. I believe in freedom. So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
It's got to be true, genuine freedom of
right.
control over your own body, first and foremost. That right to not be harmed definitely extends to, I have the right that nobody else can tell me that I must do something with my skin suit that I don't want to fucking do.
Mm-hmm.
It is literally time for a sex strike. Straight up. Straight the fuck up. I'm just saying. And not just for those of us with uteruses, but if you have a dick and you agree, guess what? Sex strike. Go get a snip snip. I'm telling you, it's much easier for men to go and get a vasectomy than it is for women to go and get our tubes tied, even let alone getting like our uterus removed.
Yeah.
Because when we go to the doctor and ask for that shit, we get hit with a list of questions like, well, what if you want more kids? What if you marry somebody in the future who wants kids out of your fucking uterus and all this other stupid shit? So literally, an imaginary husband in the future that exists only in that doctor's mind has more fucking rights over your uterus than you do as the person with it. Whereas when men go to get vasectomies, y'all don't get hit with that shit. They're like, all right, line them up. Come on, snip, snip. And again, easily reversible. So guess what? They want to fucking try to force us to incubate sperm. How about we cut off the sperm flow? Because every fucking unwanted pregnancy starts with unwanted sperm deposits. So that's a great place to begin with. Please go do that. I can tell you right now, ain't no dick coming any fucking where near me unless they can show me written fucking proof that they've had a vasectomy. Because I'm not risking my health going out the fucking window at 40 fucking years old with a fucked spine and having no options if my hormonal birth control fails.
Right. Well, and you know, it's the same for us too. I've had my kids already from my previous marriage. Amanda and I are not going to have kids together because it would be very dangerous for her with her blood clotting condition. But still, she would have to jump through a ton of hoops to get her tubes tied.
I've asked.
Yeah.
I've been, what if you decide to have a child? And I was like, I've been told by my hematologist, if I get pregnant, if I even carried to term, it would come down to you or the baby.
Yeah, that's not a position we ever would want to be in.
Right, and if I know that going in, why am I gonna like put myself in that sort of position? Why would I put him in that sort of position knowingly? And be like, hey, yo, I might not be able to respond to this question, so you're gonna have to pick. Like, I think that's cruel to be armed with that information and then to completely disregard it. But,
Well,
I mean...
It's just another thing that proves that the word care doesn't belong in the term healthcare anymore. It's missing from so many facets.
Right, and like, they're so worried about these abortions because, the birth rate's dropping in this country, blah, blah, blah. And like, have you factored in that having a child is extremely expensive, like $1 million over the span of their birth to 18, if they're healthy? If. That's a big if in this fucking country.
Right.
And odds are everybody has stuff. Everybody has something come up, even if it's asthma or whatever, juvenile diabetes. Like, things happen. Shit happens. Life happens.
Right.
And, like, they don't care about any of the stuff after the pregnancy and the birth. Then they're just like, fuck you.
Yeah, then somehow life becomes a little less precious. Or a lot less precious.
Right. Especially if it's not white.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
Right.
And that pregnancy for that woman that's not white is extremely dangerous too.
Right.
That's why black women in this country still have the highest rate of infant mortality.
And it doesn't have to be that high.
Right.
There's no reason.
It absolutely doesn't.
Not in the most developed country. Yeah. Go on, Rob. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, I rest my case. Look at Cuba.
Right.
Yeah.
They have so little, but they do so much with it because they're not
yeah.
focused on the profit motive. Right? Every neighborhood has a doctor that makes house calls. Fuck, dude. They went house to house to do the vaccines. There was no fucking sit in your car and wait in a 5-mile line like it was in Arizona.
And they had to develop their own vaccine because they couldn't get help from the West. And they've been embargoed since what, the 50s, the 60s? I'm not exactly sure how early it started, but since that time they've been under an embargo.
1961. I could be wrong on that though.
And
it was right before Bay of Pigs, right?
That could be. But somehow they have better health care than the ones embargoing them.
Well, I mean, you know, like we have this terrible habit of shooting ourselves in the foot with our embargoes and sanctions. Look at Russia.
Yeah.
I mean, are we really hurting Russia? No, the ruble is strong and the dollar is collapsing. I rest my case. The sanctions are a joke.
Right.
Yeah,
All we're
sanctions-
doing with those sanctions against Russia is fucking ourselves on fertilizer and grain. Good job, America.
Well, sanctions always hurt the people that can least afford it the most.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure there are, people in Russia that are being hurt by the sanctions, but the point is it's affecting the general population way worse than it's affecting the government on either side.
Yeah, I don't think any of those oligarchs are suffering under sanctions.
Not at all. They're
No.
not going without food. They're
Maybe,
not going
maybe the
without
one,
gas. They're not going
maybe
without-
that one
Because
whose
they're-
yacht got seized. Maybe he's a little bit sadder than the rest, but
They're
that's
funneling
about
that
it.
money into other bank accounts anyway. If
Well,
it's not there, it's not a problem, right?
yeah.
Yep. Ah! Pretty much my summary of feelings about this entire shit.
Completely understandable. Micropower8 said the U.S. has a trashy social system and health system, but the German system is not perfect either.
Oh, there's no perfect system, but there's a lot better.
No, there
systems than
definitely
we've got.
isn't. Yeah, I mean, there definitely isn't a perfect system, but I mean, removing the profit motive
Yeah.
is paramount to fixing either of them.
Yeah. I mean, Canada could do a lot better with their prescription drugs. Canada could do a lot better covering mental health and tooth health and the things that are not part of the regular health care. But it's still pretty good to have that for all the catastrophic stuff that might happen to you. They still have it much better than your average American. Like I don't have health care right now. I have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job. We can't afford health care.
To be fair, though, it's not really fair, but I tried to get on ACA, and it's $500 a month.
Yeah, for the both of us, it'd be $500
Yeah.
a month. That's
It's
a
like-
huge chunk.
Way to
out of
go,
our take-home pay.
ACA! Thought the first day was affordable. I guess it was just atrocious.
Oh,
My bad.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty spot on.
You would spend less money than that to just go pay out of pocket to see the doctor if you need
Right.
to.
We could just.
Yeah, I mean, unless something big happens.
Well, true.
Yeah.
But then,
Right.
yeah.
But I mean,
But-
that being said, with that fucking $500 a month, you probably still have a $3,000 to $5,000 deductible.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That was
That as
that's. I think the best deductible I saw was $7,000 at $500 a month. I was like,
It's just, what is the point at that? But insurance is such a scam, like across the board. Yeah, even things like car insurance.
oh, don't
You know,
even get me started on that shit.
We've just been recently informed they're jacking up our rate again because drivers in our area are not driving so well and getting into accidents.
And we had our catalytic converter stolen.
What's that got to do with us? We're driving okay. We have, but
That was with accident
and then
forgiveness.
I had to talk to them on the phone. It's like, okay, where do we got to move to get a better rate? Oh, we don't really do it that way. It's not really like that. They wouldn't tell us what area to go to. So
What the fuck?
yeah, I mean, it just sounds like a big cover to say we can jack up our rates because we feel like it.
I just wanted
And there's
to
nothing you can do about it.
somebody call bullshit, man.
It's all a grift.
But it's like you're required to have it. You get zero say in like
Mhm.
what you want or like your rate or anything like that, but you have to have it. But like, I mean, we were hit by an uninsured driver.
Yeah. And we have full coverage.
Yeah.
We still had to pay $500 deductible. I mean, thankfully we had that insurance because it was like almost $10,000 in total. But still, like,
It's a joke.
guy going too fast on a slippery road and clipped the front of our car,
Pushed us into a parked car.
pushed us into a park area. But yeah, we're getting off the subject again.
Yeah,
Sorry about this.
That's part of the system too. Insurance sucks. America sucks.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about women's health care, let's talk about, expanding health care to everyone.
Right?
That could be a start.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty pro-life position.
Stop
If we're gonna frame
advertising.
things that way.
Stop advertising drugs. Make mental health care more accessible, like regular health care and dentistry. Like, I mean, shit. you can buy vision insurance out of pocket, and it's probably the only insurance that's like reasonable. Like, I'm a big fan of iMed. It's pretty cheap, and you get a lot of benefits. Like, your eye exam's free. They give you $140, and like,
it's not bad.
You know, big discounts as long as you're in network.
It's still ridiculous that it's not just given to everyone. Like, I didn't ask to be born with really terrible sight. That was not a decision that I ever made in my life, and yet I have to pay for it forever.
Same. These contacts are fucking expensive.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the universal health insurance thing, because honestly, it really should be, and it used to be a long time in the 60s, a right-wing talking point of universal health care. In that, like, it basically was the idea that it made employers able to be more competitive, small employers versus large employers. And it's actually a good thing for the market to have. It's basically like the equivalent of like having good roads is why the government takes care of roads, because it's good commerce. Having health care so that employers are competing on equitable grounds would be a better, more effective way to support, quote unquote, the marketplace. And that message has gotten lost in the last 60 years. And it's one of those things I thought, like when Andrew Yang was running, what you can say whatever you want about his candidacy, but I thought that was going to be a position he would take as that technocratic, like, I'm a hip business modern man kind of look at things. And it never took off. And I was like, this is the argument you need to make against the right, is that like healthcare is good for business, like having universal healthcare. It takes a lot of BS off of their plate. And it's, obviously, for all the reasons we want it. And also, like, it is good for the labor pool, because you can go get a job. You don't have to deal with 90 days until you get health insurance and all these other things. Like that. People don't leave jobs because they have health issues and they can't afford to have the 90 days without health insurance. Like, that is not a good thing for the labor pool. And like, there's a lot of ways we should be engaging with these conversations that just aren't being done.
Absolutely true.
I'd kind of like to talk about Andrew Yang a little bit, just since he's come up. Like, I remember when he was out and about, he was talking about UBI so much, and at first I thought that was really cool that he was like trying to push this UBI, like it'll be really good. But then later on, as I overheard him talking on the radio or some show or something, he was talking about using the UBI to get rid of social programs.
Yes, in place of.
Which was like,
I wish he was a little bit more bold in that and saying, in addition to.
Right.
Just so that we can take care of some of these basic needs of people. But even then, just universal basic goods. I'm not sure the exact phrasing that I've heard before, but just like giving people housing, giving people food, healthcare, these sorts of things, so that they just have a basic platform to then actually make decisions about their life with. They're never forced into a job because they can't afford not to be. They get to decide how they want to spend their life, what they want to devote their labor to. To me, that's real freedom. That's the ultimate freedom, is freedom to actually control your own life and never be coerced into a decision of any kind, especially one as important as where you spend 8 to, in my case, 10 hours a day working for somebody else.
Yeah. And the thing is about the UBI thing is that we kind of we have our minimum wage, but we also have the earned income tax credit, which basically is the government's way of acknowledging that what people make isn't enough to live on. Right. Because if you work and you get EITC or earned income tax credit, it's based on not just your income, but also the size of your family and all these things that don't play into minimum wage. Sure. And it's basically supposed to exist to kind of balance things out at the end of the year where, hey, we know you didn't make enough money throughout the year. Here's $4,000 or whatever it might be to basically make it so you can pay the bills you couldn't afford before. And it's an interesting, the government is aware that things aren't working. And they've got a lot of weird and creative ways to get around that. and it's interesting. Like they're much more aware that the system doesn't work than I think anyone would ever admit. But they're like the decisions they make say that they understand that, and
Yeah.
like that, whether you're looking at Cop City or whatever else is going on, like it's very clear the government is aware that things are falling apart very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all collectively shitting their pants and then wiping it on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Very horrible visual there, but
so gross. It's
right,
true.
but it kind of seems like they're just veering towards we're all screwed. That seems to be their conclusion. Things are dire in the near future, and they're just going to amass as much power and as much wealth and secure their position as well as they possibly can for when that time happens. I was just hearing on some podcast about how Elon Musk designed his Cybertruck, that big, looked like a horrible pixelated, video game car. But he designed that for a post-apocalyptic future where basically rich people will be targeted by the teeming masses of people who don't have enough and are trying to come after them for their resources. So it's just the same as his Hyperloop or his tunnel beneath Las Vegas that's only for his select few people. It's also that he can separate himself physically. Him and his ilk can separate themselves physically from, the proletariat, basically. They seem to be taking that route, and he's not the only one. I can't think of the other guy's name. Peter Thiel, is that his name? Yeah. One of the guys who I think was involved in PayPal as well. Basically seems to have come to the same conclusion that the rich are just going to have to fight off the teeming hordes at some point. So that's going to be their strategy.
Yeah, and like I said, the government seems to be aware of it, and they seem to be, in some ways, instigating some of the issues and teasing out kind of how things will play out. You can look at stuff that the military is doing around urban warfare, and I think Cop City has gotten a lot of attention the last year or so, but like the military has been training for dealing with guerrilla insurgents in mega cities, whether that's like the DC to Boston metro region, whatever you want to call it, or and preparing, because that's basically what they expect. And I know, I'm sure folks watching or listening are familiar with Robert Evans, and It Could Happen Here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's outlined some of this in some of that information is now 5-6 years old. Is it 5 years old? I don't know. It's been a few years now, and some of those things have come to fruition, and other things have also ebbed and flowed based on technologies and things like that, where we're in a very unique place right now. And like I said, the government's aware things are not going great, and they're preparing for that. So are we.
That makes it just all the more bizarre how much there was a lack of response when January 6th happened. And I'm not very conspiracy minded. I tend to usually discard that stuff pretty much out of hand. It seems absurd, but they were so underprepared for people actually storming the Capitol, even though that had been up on Discord servers for weeks. They had Enrico Tarrio, as an informant for the Proud Boys. It almost seems like they wanted it to actually happen, and actually to be a coup where they could then have a pretext to really seize power and clamp down.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of unanswered questions, and I don't know if we'll ever get an answer.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting scenario that we've kind of worked ourselves into, and it'll be interesting. Again, we've got the midterms coming up this year, and I think people have forgotten like that's happening. Like, it seems like we've had such a shitty year, and we haven't even had to deal with politics really. Like, it's terrible what's coming in the fall, and how that's going to play out for the next 2 years of the presidency, and then the gearing up for the 24 election. it's going to be interesting.
I'm afraid
Interesting. Yep.
that Trump might be on that ballot again in 24.
Trump or someone
I'm
who's
just
equally bad.
I'm just as
Or
afraid of
worse.
DeSantis as Trump.
Yeah. Honestly, I find DeSantis to be much scarier because, as was mentioned earlier, he actually seems to be more effective with his bigotry and fuckery than Trump ever was. The idea of DeSantis getting the presidency seat next is downright fucking frightening.
Yeah. I don't know too much about the personality or the following DeSantis has, but if he does have the kind of cult of personality that Trump does, and he could lead a movement the way that Trump captured the imagination of just so many millions of people, combining that with being a more effective, bureaucrat, like he actually seems to understand how the levers of power work, whereas Trump just, I don't think Trump knew what one office or the other did, even. I mean, you hear some of the stuff that came out from the testimony from the January 6th thing. He didn't really seem to understand what the purpose of the Justice Department was or who was in charge of it. He didn't know that he was the only one who could fire the head of the Justice Department. So if you had someone in place who actually knew what they were doing and had even a basic understanding of the structures of power, that could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Or just said that Musk says he'll back him. What the fuck?
Musk is just, he's a right winger. He's never been anything but a right winger. He'll say whatever is personally beneficial to him at the time.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm gonna stand up for free speech and buy Twitter. LOL, just kidding, guys. That was just a joke.
Yeah. He doesn't have the money to buy it, even if he has the equity. Buying the money is another story.
That's true.
But this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for inviting me on. For folks that enjoyed, I guess, the things I have to say, I have a podcast called the Poor Proles Almanac, where we talk about prepping and collapse and ecological resilience and all that cool stuff. So hopefully you guys tune in. Nice. Otherwise, keep listening on, guys. Keep going. Keep it strong.
Thanks, Andy. Good to see you again.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you too. Bye, guys.
It's nice to meet you.
Come back anytime.
Will do.
Oh, now we got the...
Yep.
We're a tripod.
Here from...
If you want me to step out, Zach, I can.
No. They can just switch the view. That's fine.
Here we go. Eve asks, but don't you think that this is good for democracy to let each state decide and legislate on that? No, not really, because that's giving the people around you governance over your body instead of having your own freedom and liberty to decide what you do with your own body. I don't give a fuck who lives next door to me. They don't get to tell me what I have to do with my fucking skin suit. This is mine. I'm the one that has to ride around in this meat suit. And I don't give a flying fuck what anybody else around me prefers I do with it.
Right.
It's not their choice.
People's living situations, people don't always live in the place that they want to live, and moving is very costly and expensive. It's not necessarily like, something you can do if you live on America's Wang and in Florida. You're not going to be able to escape.
We've seen some groups trying to come together and crowdfund to raise money to help women be able to travel to other states to be able to get the healthcare services that they need. And I think we're going to have to expand that to moving funds of going somewhere where they can get the healthcare that they need without the ramifications of having to go back home to somewhere where they're going to get thrown in jail for going to a different state for their healthcare. When that's the type of fascist shit that we're dealing with, we have to come together. We're going to have to do something to actually fucking make it possible for people to escape this type of fascism happening in their home states. And that's part of the problem is, Eve, you were referring to democracy, but we don't live in a fucking democracy. The United States is not a democracy at all. We would probably be doing a hell of a lot better if we actually did have democratic centralism. We do not.
Yeah.
We live in a constitutional republic,
Yeah.
and that gives other motherfuckers grounds to actually try to dictate what other people are doing with their fucking bodies, because when it comes down to it, our elected quote-unquote representatives are not under any obligation to the people. They are not held accountable to the people to actually do what we tell them we want. And that's why we're looking at the shit show that we are right now.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, do you really want 50 different interpretations of who gets to be a person and who gets to have rights?
Thank you. I know I sure don't, because I'd fill up the whole bingo board of who doesn't get to fucking have rights. I'm a woman. I'm bisexual. I'm multiracial. There's a lot of people in this fucking country who think that people like me just shouldn't fucking exist.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that if the federal government is good for anything, it's that sort of thing. Just setting a baseline for who gets to be, on par with everybody else. Yeah. Just,
Yeah. Yep. That's one of those things that deciding who qualifies as a full human being or not shouldn't be up to public opinion. And Eve, I don't know. That's a good question. Most of the Republicans who claim to be pro-life but are really just pro-forced birth still have idiotic ideas. Like they think that if you're raped, then your body will shut down a pregnancy. That's not how anything fucking works. And a lot of them are very rapey themselves and think that it's okay for people to go around raping others. They make excuses for it. Look at our Supreme Court justices who fucked us over today. Some of them are rapists too.
Looking at you, Brett Kavanaugh.
Yep. And if you'd like to know Brett Kavanaugh's address, I did post that on our page before we went live today.
Let me pull that off and read it aloud to our friends.
Please.
Please
and thank you.
Yeah,
we also need to get our hands on the other right-wing extremists, fucking racist, sexist pieces of shit on the Supreme Court. We need to get the rest of their addresses and publish those too, because they need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Kavanaugh's neighbors already organized a protest in front of his fucking house not too long ago. We need
the goddamn Republicans. Goddamn Republicans have the gall to say, let's not politicize the Supreme Court. Let's just keep protest away from the Supreme Court. We don't want direct pressure on the decisions that they are making totally neutrally. It's like, fuck
Bullshit.
you. You knew exactly what you were doing. You packed them with the most reactionary people you could find for a purpose. They are now fulfilling that purpose. The idea that the Supreme Court was ever neutral, that's just been like a fun little fiction that both the major parties have thrown out when it benefits them. When it all depends on who has a nominee up for a vote. Then they're always like, oh, let's not be political about it.
The Supreme Court justices themselves are politicizing the Supreme Court. So fuck the entire idea.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They deserve to be protested every single day until hopefully they'll just like rage quit the Supreme Court. That would be like the ideal. But
no justice, no peace.
How about just no justices?
Also,
that too.
It should never have been a lifelong fucking appointment in the first place, because there comes a certain point where your ass is out of touch. You have no idea what people actually want because you're up on your fucking high horse and you are completely out of contact with reality.
I got something here that might be a little controversial. All cops are bastards applies to Supreme Court justices.
Oh.
Yes, it does.
Of course it does.
Absolutely, it fucking does.
Yeah. Yep.
Bring on the controversy.
Where's that address? Damn it.
Yeah, I mean, even Sotomayor recently was going on and on doing like her Ellen DeGeneres impression when she was, fawning over George Bush, but instead Sotomayor was like, "Oh, Clarence Thomas, he is the only one who knows everyone in the building by name and always asks about how their families are doing. Like he's just the kindest man in the world. Whatever. I don't give a fuck about any of that. He could be he could be Mr. Rogers. If he's making the decisions he's making, though, that have an effect on everyone's life the way they do, then fuck him. It doesn't matter how nice he is. That's backwards, by the way, Trish. I think your camera's reversed.
Oh. Give me a second.
Brett Kavanaugh, 3706 Underwood. Oh, damn.
Oh, Underwood Street.
It's like, I can read backwards.
Maryland, I believe, MD.
Chevy Chase, Maryland.
20815.
Let's type that into the chat, folks.
You can do that on your phone.
That's an excellent idea.
Pull it up. You have it right there.
I like the keyboard. I'm in front of a computer. I want to use the keyboard. I don't want to use the phone.
Well, okay. I can't type it
So,
in.
Just Old Joe on YouTube said, Roe v. Wade was stupid to rely on. Why was no law passed through the legislature in all these years instead of relying on one case? Exactly. And the answer to that is the Democrats learned what codify meant 2 months ago.
They had several opportunities where they had supermajorities. Under Obama, I believe under Clinton, there's been times when they could have put through any goddamn thing they wanted as long as they had put enough pressure on all of their, most conservative members, the Joe Manchins of their times. But they chose not to. They chose not to.
49 and a half years to act. But this November, it'll be different.
Yep.
Right. That's the thing. They refused to codify it for the last pushing 50 years. Because they wanted to keep that card in their pocket to play as an emotional manipulation tactic.
That's the thing. It's
and
a good
if you want to
fundraiser.
keep your rights, you have to keep voting for us. By the way, here's our link. You need to donate money to us
link.
too.
Like, listen here, dickwad. I'm gonna light the goddamn ballot box on fire because it's a fucking joke. You're not held accountable for any shit that comes out of your shit mouth leading up to these elections. You sit there and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get rid of student loan debt and I'm gonna become an astronaut. Like, fuck you. You've done nothing. You sat there with your finger up your ass the whole time and done nothing. Like, you shouldn't get a chance again. Like, take your ball and go home. You blew it. Sorry.
That was one of the most infuriating periods of my adult life, is when Obama had his supermajority. They were unstoppable. We could have packed so many progressive acts, not just about social issues, not just about human rights. We could have strengthened union participation and union rights. We could have made it easier to start worker-owned cooperatives. Hell, they could have done basically anything short of maybe outlawing private property, but they could have come damn close.
Could we do anything?
We could do anything.
If you had a dream?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a good video that'll make you feel better. You should watch it later. It'll help you be less mad.
Should I find that video?
But I mean, it's disappointing, and I'm so tired of the vote for me. I mean, shit, I've been getting emails ever since it was called today. Like, oh, vote for me and I'll fix this. Like, you don't fix the problems we already have. What makes me think you're gonna fucking do it now?
Right. That.
I mean, shit. This is like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You could have fucking done it the whole time. You chose not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'll be right back. My dogs are doing the pee-pee dance. So.
Oh.
Doom!
Yep, it was her. She was over there in front of just doing her stomp, 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 and looking at me like,
hey.
Yeah.
Good communicator.
I'm surprised that she's not straight up talking to, the
right. I'm surprised too. Normally she would announce more verbally, but it's kind of funny. She's really smart. I think she's aware that we are doing the show right now, and she does try to be quiet during the show.
Aww.
But I will be right back in a few minutes.
Okay.
Right on. I'm probably not going to be here all that much longer because I've been driving for 5 days.
Oh,
no.
Jesus, dude.
That's a long time.
If you want to do a little,
I mean, I'll stay till Trisha gets back though. I'm not going to leave you hanging.
Okay. If you want to do a little palate cleanser, I just posted a link in the chat there.
It's not copyrighted, right?
No. This is all.
Oh, I can't. Right, I can't click it from.
Shoot.
The Restream chat. Send it in the.
Yeah,
I'll
find it. I'll find it on my browser here, and.
Send it in the private chat, and I should be able to click it from there.
We need to find the addresses for all the Supreme Court justices. I think it's time. And then if they start going after the alphabet mafia, I think we need to send them glitter bombs in the mail.
Can you imagine how the media would report that? An unknown glittery substance was mailed to all 9 Supreme Court justices.
In a rainbow of colors. What could this be about?
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Through the generations, you, the schmoes, have sent us memes and we've sent them back as songs. Yet not all of them have made the journey. Now, with clear 2020 hindsight, let's make it right and find the lost memes.
Flex tape is super strong, and once it's on, it holds on tight. It holds just right. Flex tape is no ordinary tape. Just cut, peel, stick, and seal. It works on any shape. That's a lot of damage. How about a little more? That's a lot of damage. On a pocket, on windows and doors. That's a lot of damage. I saw this road in half. Super big damage. Flex tape can instantly patch. No damage.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know what that is. Never seen that. Okay. That's tomorrow, and that is it. Take it away. Okay. That's tomorrow, and we will leave you with a. I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. We'll leave you with Sting. I don't know what that means. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. I can't read it to end the show. Yeah. Thing sucks. All right, go. I'll write it. Yeah, we'll do it live. Live.
If you ever had a dream that you had, you would, you can, you do, you would, you want, you could do so, you could do, you want him to do so much, you could do anything. Ever had a dream, you could do anything. Ever had a dream, you could do anything.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends.
It's free.
A fantasy RPG
On iOS, Android, and PC.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends. It's got a Raid Shadow Legends. It's a fun game, battle royale, or campaign. Try this out.
Do not wait.
We'll do it live. That's a lot of damage. We'll do it live. And a little more.
We'll leave you with Sting.
Ever had a dream?
We'll do it live. That's a lot of damage. We'll do it live. Raid Shadow Legends.
I can't read it to end the show.
I'm creating a mode. I'll write it. Yeah, we'll do it live.
Good morning, time to slay all day. It is testing week.
Stay woke.
Goals,
Be on fleek.
say bye Felicia to the testing stress.
Yes. A hundo E. Chance of success. Gonna be lit. You got this, kid. We'll do it live. That's a lot of damage. We'll do it live. And a little more.
We'll leave you with Sting.
Ever had a dream?
We'll do it live. That's a lot of damage. We'll do it live. Raid Shadow Legends.
I can't read it to end the show.
Gonna be lit.
Goals,
I'll write it. Yeah, we'll do it live.
Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with
Smoke Yo Ho. Thanks.
There you have it.
Wow.
Yep.
A masterpiece.
That's what we watch when we feel angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how can you feel angry after that?
I know, right?
So, I do have a bit of relevant Roe v. Wade. There we go. It's relevant to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed into law today Senate Bill 1164. And it's going to be one of the nation's strictest anti-abortion laws. It makes any abortion after 15 weeks a crime. Doctors can face felony charges. There's exceptions for the mother's health, but not for rape or incest.
Holy fuck, dude.
What nope.
Okay. Too angry?
Yep.
Okay. That's beyond the pale, man.
I hope he gets hit by a car.
Don't. No credible threats. Especially public figures.
Sorry.
I
I mean,
I hope his Viagra gets
I
taken
understand your anger, but you gotta be careful.
I mean, I'm kind of on board with what she's saying, honestly. Ducey is another piece of work that I would be terrified if he ran a successful presidential campaign.
There's just so many of these slime balls out there.
I know.
Like, imagine if Tucker Carlson tried to run. Like, he already has a following.
Too stupid.
He plays that game where he pretends to be a populist, but really, when it comes down to it, he's just a reactionary. Yeah, there's just so many.
Yeah.
Just so many. Or like someone who believes in QAnon, since so many of them got elected recently, like Lauren Boebert or
Marjorie Taylor
Greene. Just about to say.
God.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't read her name recently. Has she done anything stupid, or did she just like shut up?
Oh, she said something really stupid recently, and I think I don't. There probably wasn't any actual consequences for her, but I should see. But yeah, not in cases of rape or incest. So you can. It may be a crime to do rape or incest, but it would also be a crime to end that pregnancy after 15 weeks, which is just it is government mandated pregnancy, government mandated birth. This is the thing that I think we need to reframe it that way, because if you don't want the government in your business, that's literally how much more in your business could they be than telling you, oh, I'm sorry, it's been too long, you have to carry this child to term, or you're going to jail.
Oh.
Hi, I've returned.
Well, you missed the fun meme song, but you're back for the worst people in the world parade.
Oh yeah. The most recent one is Doug Ducey. He signed into law. I'll just reread it real quick. It's quick. He signed Senate Bill 1164 today. Will be one of the nation's strictest anti-abortion laws. Makes any abortion after 15 weeks a crime. Doctors can face felony charges, and there's exceptions for mother's health, but not for rape or incest.
Wow, what the fuck?
Not to mention that they didn't even really need to do that. That's all for show, because Arizona still has a abortion ban from the pre-Roe era still on the books.
So rather than falling back on a total ban, he at least passed that to cover up to 15 weeks.
Well, no. I mean, the 15 weeks is, I forget where they got that number actually, but they added the felony charges for doctors, and they got rid of the exceptions for rape or incest, if I remember the old law correctly.
Ooh.
I'd like to know what the special circumstances are.
Yeah, I mean, what special circumstances besides rape or incest? I guess it would just be
what health issue?
Threatening the life of the mother, I suppose. But
yeah,
but like, I mean, especially in the case of incest, it's incredibly easy for parents to then just keep their kid away from the public view until it's after that point, especially if they don't want to get caught. And then, oh, whoops, it's too late. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
all they'd have to do is hide it long enough, and you know, you can just pass it off as another sibling, rather than.
right. And that's the thing. Like, okay, for starters, you have to have missed a period first to even have any awareness that you might need to take a pregnancy test.
Right.
And if your periods aren't regular, you could be pushing that 14, 15 week mark before you are even aware.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm gonna get off of here so I can go find some grub and probably sit on that couch over there or something.
You enjoy that food. I'm sorry I was not nice to a person I don't know.
No,
on your
it's
stream.
Look, no. I don't care about you being mean to him. It's just,
I know that you guys personally think that that's an excellent idea that I had, but I want to be mindful that we don't get in trouble.
That's all.
I know. I'm acknowledging. I'm sorry.
So here, I'll just paste this one last article. You asked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Apparently, she got rejected for getting a presidential pardon because she spelled it wrong. She spelled it parton.
Oh my God.
Hello, Dolly.
Dolly can't help you and wouldn't want to.
Excuse me, Miss Pardon. I need a pardon.
God.
Oh, it's so terrible.
Wait a minute. That's a New Yorker humor. Maybe that was actually a joke. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at that. I just saw the headline.
Can I get a?
Oh wait. I think that was just a joke. That was the Borowitz report. I'm sorry. But that's the thing. I would believe that was true with
totally
her.
Believable. As fucking dumb as Marjorie Taylor Greene is, it's totally believable.
Still, that makes me laugh though, because that totally would be something she would do.
Yeah, for sure. But like, she stopped going on about Jewish space lasers, right?
Yeah, for now, until she needs to drum up some fear in her next campaign.
Right. She's waiting for another wildfire to hit, and she'll be like, "Jews!" God.
She told British
I did not see that coming.
Jewish space lasers.
Yeah, like Mini-Me, quit humping the laser.
As someone who, a large portion of my ethnicity is Jewish, I'm here to tell you that if we had fucking space lasers, one would be targeted on her by now. She should shut the fuck up.
Yeah, right. Somehow they only shot those space lasers out in the middle of nowhere where no one could see them to start forest fires when it was already incredibly dry, the driest summer on record, and tons of heat and power outages and power line coming down. But no, let's just add on top of that space lasers, because all those conditions being a perfect tinderbox to explode, that's not enough. We have to add on a global cabal conspiracy.
Right. And I mean, not to mention also that even the region of California that she was referring to has a natural cycle of wildfires that clears out the detritus and shit and makes room for new stuff to grow. It is literally a fucking environmental cycle that area goes through on the regular and has for pretty much all of recorded history in California.
I mean, you're right, but the reason that the fires are getting so much more extreme is because that cycle stopped for like over 100 years now.
And it was suppressed too. Smokey the Bear kind of did a lot of damage to the entire natural fire cycle of the wilderness. So he's like, put out every forest fire. And that ended up not being a good idea for a lot of these places.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially like Northern California, like, every 10 or 12 years, a fire should go through and burn out all the pine needles and dead leaves and dead trees out, right? To make, like Trisha was saying, make room for new growth, especially when you're talking about fucking sequoia trees. Those fuckers are massive. Redwoods, giant redwoods are another one. And that's the thing. The redwoods are naturally very fire resistant, but now the fires are burning so hot because there's so much fuel and it's so dry that they have to wrap them in flame retardant so they don't get killed.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, this tree literally evolved fire retardant bark. And it's not enough anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But let's pretend that there's Jewish space lasers out there in the sky doing all of this.
Anything to point the blame at anything but, you know, the oil companies, the energy companies, the systems of government. There's been a bunch of exploitation and a bunch of failure on every level. And I mean, now, you know, like, Mexico is having to, like, pump water into the bed of the Colorado to prevent the drought from worsening because the river doesn't flow to the ocean anymore and hasn't.
No, it barely
for a
flows
long
into
time.
Mexico anymore, if it does. I think there's times where it dries up completely, the part that goes
Yeah,
into
well,
Mexico.
I know there are times, but I think that part of the year is still...
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's probably the most overexploited river in our entire country right now, because it just it provides water to so many huge areas of population that overuse it. Las Vegas being
Like
a good
Phoenix?
example. Phoenix, yeah, places in the middle of the desert that have no business having green lawns or golf courses or any of these sorts of things. Somehow they get to have water rights, but like people that are you know, just growing food or trying to harvest it for their own use in their own yard, they get heavily regulated.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like Arizona, the first water cuts in the state's history directly affected agriculture. And that's it. Not golf course, not a single golf course closed. In fact, they're still building more.
That's so ridiculous. Just go somewhere else for your golf. Don't pick Arizona if that's what you like doing. Go to Florida. It rains plenty there. They got tons of golf courses and tons of retirees that would love to play with you as well. So, like, come on.
Just Old Joe said Lake Powell dropped 40 feet in the last 18 months. And Lake Mead is less than 150 feet away from hitting dead pool status, meaning the water will no longer flow out of the dam.
Right.
It is the lowest it's ever been since they put the dam in, since they started damming these areas. So, yeah, Southwest, man. I feel for them, but it's not looking good for their long-term survivability, really.
Well, yeah, and I mean, especially looking at Phoenix, I know during the peak of COVID, there was like something like 24 people a day moving to the valley, either from California or, you know, other more expensive areas. They're already running out. I keep wanting to say they're already running out of water. What are they going to do in another 20 years? They're still building entire fucking neighborhoods there.
Ridiculous.
Right.
And it's all the suburban style sprawl. So you have to use the cars to get to where you're going. You have to run the AC all day long. There's no sharing of resources. It's all, I mean, you're watering your lawn. I mean, my uncle lives in Scottsdale. I've seen it, just green lawn after green lawn after green lawn. He was the only one who used native plants, and his neighbors all thought he was weird because he had like cacti and stuff growing in his yard. Like, why don't you just have a lawn? Yeah, right.
That's what's supposed to grow there.
Not every place has to look like England, okay?
Well, actually, it was French.
Oh, French. You're right.
The lawn was a way for the French aristocracy to, you know, flex on their
Look at all this land we can waste. We don't need it in underproduction. We have that kind of money. Yeah.
Right.
Not the flex they thought it was.
No, it's not. Hey, I have a funny Marjorie Taylor Greene video if you guys want to watch. She tried to crash a pro-choice protest and instantly regretted it.
Hell yes. Please share.
It's only like 6 minutes. It's Brian Tyler Cohen. He's a good leftist guy.
I can think of some other people in Marjorie Taylor Greene's life that probably have some regrets.
I mean, I would, but here we go.
Before you start that, I think that you weren't sharing it yet. Anyway.
Oh, I wasn't sharing it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, after this video, actually maybe even during this video, I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna.
I know, totally get it. Yeah, like you're probably running on fumes at this point. So
I was running on fumes yesterday.
Aw. Do you just have like an IV of coffee for when you're driving?
An IV, no, but we do almost every time that we stopped, it was for coffee and gas.
Yeah.
The dog's piss, but coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yup.
Essential. Remaining functional on the road.
Yeah, especially, dude, because I don't care who you are, 4 hours into driving, you're just like.
Yeah, at that point, that's.
It's boring.
That's enough.
Yeah, oh my God, especially like New Mexico and that little chunk of Texas felt like 4 days.
Wow.
It really does, because there's nothing to even look at. It's like beige, beige, beige. Oh, hey, there's a new shade of beige. More beige.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you get off the freeway. So going into New Mexico was pretty cool. It was a new route for me. We took the 60 through the Superstitions, and that was really fucking cool.
Yeah, I've heard that's a beautiful state.
We went, what was it, the world's largest pistachio? We went to the world's largest pistachio.
Ooh,
and drove through Roswell, which I think is a symbol of how capitalism has failed society.
Oh, yeah?
Dude, the spaceship
just a big
McDonald's.
gift shop?
Yeah, there's a UFO McDonald's.
Oh.
That's
the place.
Nice.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight of the town, though, honestly. There's like a shit ton of like loan shark places and payday cashing places, gas stations, a UFO McDonald's, and that's about it. Oh, well, I can't forget the trinket stores.
Oh, man. If only that guy was still alive to do a UFO McDonald's song. The guy who did Rock and Roll McDonald's. That would be like a good updated cover. UFO McDonald's. All right, you want to play it now?
What about victims? It is so wonderful. I think we have to worry about the radical left. They're the ones that are going to perform an insurrection here in the Supreme Court. We got to protect women. Groups and us as a domestic terrorist group. And so is the government. And anyone supporting abortion is supporting them.
Thank you.
This is the greatest blessing. Survivors
Move to the side. Ma'am, move to the side. Okay, go for it. Go. You gotta get her.
Just so we're clear about what happened here, Marjorie Taylor Greene was so intent on getting her 15 minutes of attention for the day that at the moment the Supreme Court overturned Roe and stripped women of their bodily autonomy, she decided to wade into that crowd so she could crow about how, quote, wonderful it was. If Donald Trump and Judge Jeanine and a noisemaker and a foghorn had a baby, it would be Marjorie Taylor Greene. And look, I could sit here all day and talk about what a depraved, vile piece of shit Marjorie Taylor Greene is. I could talk about what a vile piece of shit all of these far-right Republican theocrats desperate for attention are. I could talk about what vile pieces of shit those Republican justices, all of whom vowed in their confirmation hearings to respect precedent, are. But I don't think I need to. I think today, of all days, these people don't need my help in broadcasting their vile shittiness. Instead, I'm going to use this time to make 2 points. The first is that we need to expand the court. This Supreme Court is not apolitical. There is no sanctity with this court. The 6 conservative justices are political operatives who not only lied in their confirmation hearings, but undermined what they themselves conceded were principles of good governance, namely respecting settled law. And don't take my word for it.
Do I have this day an opinion, a personal opinion, on the outcome in Roe versus Wade? And my answer to you is that I do not.
Roe versus Wade is an important precedent of the Supreme Court.
A good judge will consider it as precedent, worthy as treatment of precedent, like any other.
It has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
Roe is not a super precedent because calls for its overruling have never ceased, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
They told these lies because they needed to say whatever they had to get confirmed. And then the moment they were given the opportunity to overturn it, they did, without hesitation. Not a word about precedent, not a word about settled law. Every single one of them signed their name onto this decision. The suggestion that these people are just calling balls and strikes, that they're simply interpreting the Constitution, is so aggressively naive, so fucking stupid that I can't actually believe some people are still claiming as much. So I know that we're supposed to be afraid to say expand the court, but expanding the court isn't extreme. What is extreme is doing nothing in the face of an unprecedented rollback of civil rights. What's extreme is allowing this all to stand. What's extreme is pretending that there is no recourse here when there is, and handing Republican Christo-fascist theocrats an unearned and unpopular victory. That is the extreme position here. Beyond that, let's also not pretend that Americans give a shit about the composition of the court. No one is waking up and saying, phew, thank God there are 9 members of the court today. Democracy is solid. It's intact. Give me a break. It is their rights they care about. No one cares whether there are 9 members of the court or 19, but I can damn well promise you they care about their own civil rights. So while Republicans are desperately trying to will into existence this idea that court expansion is radical, that's just to cover for the fact that the only radical thing here is what their Supreme Court has just done. That's my first point. The second point is this. I know it's easy to look at what's happening and say, why bother voting? Democrats have full control of government and it's only gotten worse. But a few things here. First, for democracy to work, you don't just win one election and sit back forever. Every single election matters because nothing is guaranteed in democracy and we have to keep fighting. Second, giving up is exactly, precisely what Republicans and those responsible for gutting Roe want you to do. They want you to feel overwhelmed and helpless and defeated. Do not reward them for stripping you of your rights. You have to keep fighting. And 3, we're close. 20 years ago, Democrats supported the Defense of Marriage Act. Now there's only one single Democrat in office, Henry Cuellar, who's anti-choice. We are so close. What we need is only 2 more senators who will eliminate the filibuster. That's all. We have come so far. So I know it's easy to point to our majorities and despise the fact that we haven't passed a law codifying Roe. Trust me, I don't think words could adequately reflect my visceral contempt over Manchin and Sinema's insistence on protecting the filibuster, but we are close. The ball is at the 5-yard line. This isn't the time to give up, it's the time for a full court press. So with that said, please, please, please do your part and help the people around you register to vote if they're not yet registered. You can go to vote.org, you can go to votesaveamerica.com, they all make it easy. But we all have someone, a newly turned 18 or 19-year-old, a politically apathetic friend or family member, someone who considers themselves more in the middle. Explain the stakes and do your part. And if you don't think that you helping register 1 or 2 people will make a difference, just remember, in Wisconsin, if Trump had added only 3 more votes per precinct, he would have flipped the state. So please, no matter where you live, if you have even one person in your life who you can persuade to register to vote, do it. I promise you, it's enough to make a difference. To see more videos like this.
Bullshit. I call bullshit on all the bullshit that just fell out of his face during that last little rant.
Yeah,
because if Democrats could be fucking trusted to actually make any of this right, they would have codified the shit before the shit hit the fan in the Supreme Court. They don't actually give a fuck. They only want to use that as a manipulation tactic to try to get you to vote for them. Why would we go out and fucking try to push for voting en masse for Democrats who just showed us they're not willing to fight? Yeah. Fuck that.
No, I get that. You know, he had good analysis, kind of a Libby take when it comes to his prognosis, what we should do.
Right. He's completely ignoring the fact that the Democrats just sat on their fucking hands the last few months and didn't do dick.
Yeah.
Hell, they sat on their hands on this issue for 49 and a half years and didn't do dick.
This is going to take more direct pressure than just waiting to our turn to vote. I'm not against voting myself. I think even in national elections, I'm certainly, as shitty as Biden is, I'm glad it's not the second round of Trump. So I can see the idea of harm reduction, even if they're not going to do shit. but yeah, I mean, it has to come down to more than just voting, because it's not working. It's only slowly but surely losing us rights across the
Right.
board, and it's just going to keep going that way. So it has to be more than voting. It has to be direct pressure placed on Supreme Court justices, uh, every politician, and then just, you know, forming mutual aid networks ourselves.
That's the thing, though,
Yeah.
is it really harm reduction to elect people who are just going to be like, well, there's nothing I can do about it because I'm choosing to just not do anything about it. So I guess you got to live with it. But vote for me this fall and contribute to my campaign.
Yeah, no. When I say harm reduction, I don't mean that there is no harm, of course, because obviously the Democrats do plenty to harm us as well. I just mean less harm than.
Yeah.
I gotta feel that another Trump win, this would just be the end of voting altogether. They would drop the entire pretense of democracy altogether, and you know, instead of just sending this Supreme Court decision back to all the states to each decide on their own, it would be even further, and they would be working on codifying it as federal law, banning abortion. So,
Yeah, and honestly, I would not be surprised if they reach for that too. There's already
Yep.
quite a few right-wing extremists in Congress that are calling for just that, to codify a ban.
I'm sure. So, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating, but I mean, this just shows the limits of bourgeois democracy. The system is entirely set up to protect private property and the people that own it. First and foremost, anything else is incidental and just like a byproduct of that,
Right.
you know, prime
Right.
directive. So we can never really hope to get where we need to be. We certainly can't hope to get there through voting or through ever just sitting back and saying, well, this is the best system we can hope for. We have to produce a better system. Just, I
Right.
mean, that's all there is to it. Whether we build that from the ground up, which is my preference, whether it takes more forceful and direct action, I don't know. But yeah, this system cannot ever get us to a fair and equitable place. It's designed not to be.
Right. That's the thing. It was built to not have any accountability to what the people actually want.
No.
Which, you know, it's fucked. It's simply an illusion of having a say with your vote.
And that's the thing.
Once they're in office, they're not obligated to do what their constituents want.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, you know, yeah, your vote can make a difference when it comes to local legislation, like how we've seen marijuana get legalized in so many states. Okay, your vote's made a fucking difference there. But when it comes to things at the federal level, how much difference is it really making if they're not held accountable to what the constituents actually fucking want?
Right.
And they're telling you what to do. For fuck's sake.
Absolutely. And at the federal level, there's just so much money that's poured in and sloshes around every election cycle that there's no hope of the average citizen really having much of a voice at all. It's not the case at the local level. Usually, even in big cities, there's still a lot more room to make real change in matters that affect people's everyday life. Things like whether or not your city has good and free mass transit, whether it has, you know, free clinics that you can go to and get health care, whether or not you can pay, whether you have the ability to even start a community garden or garden on your lawn. There's a lot of things at the local level that can be changed, and it doesn't take that much citizen action to do so. So that's where I still have hope, the most hope when it comes to voting. But when it comes down to it, we just got to start living a different way, a way that mutual aid just comes naturally. It's just built into the systems that we build. It becomes a matter of course to people. They don't think twice about sharing whenever they have a surplus of whatever it is, whenever someone needs something. That should just be the default mode for people. Just view everyone as one big family. Share the things that you have excess of that other people need. And don't charge them money just to exist on the planet.
That alone, though, I don't see us ever getting to with reformism.
Right.
You know, it would literally take a revolution of changing things to where we actually have democratic centralism that has accountability to the people, that removes money from politics altogether. Why we have this system of legalized bribery of lobbying is fucking beyond me. That removes all power from the people, and that is fucked. Fuck
Yeah.
that. The power belongs in the hands of the people.
Well, I mean, even just in terms of electoralism, in Cuba, you're not allowed to spend money on your own campaign. You are given money for your campaign. All the candidates are, but it's a set amount of money so that no one can outspend the other. You can't win just by having more money and having more
Right.
exposure and stuff like that. And you're
Yep.
very restricted in the sort of ads that you can put out there too.
Yep.
So that gives a
That-
much more level playing field.
Absolutely. That's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck this shit of you can only get in office if you're fucking wealthy and therefore going to protect only the interests of the wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, agreed, James. I'm popping that on screen. Tax Man from the Beatles. Still relevant.
But it's not so much that we are taxed. I think it's fine to be taxed as long as that's going to support the people surviving. You know,
Right.
if instead of going to imperialism and war and lining the pockets of businessmen, if that money was instead going to building free housing for people, making sure that everyone has food at all times, making sure everyone has access to free education up to whatever level they're able to attain, free transportation to anywhere in the country that they're desiring to go through mass transit. If our money was going to these sorts of programs, then I don't think anyone would have really, except for the rich. No one else would have a problem with taxation at all. It
Right.
kind of becomes a non-issue.
It's the whole not having a say over what our tax dollars get spent on that is
Right.
problematic, because I'm not in favor of paying a bunch of taxes to wage war on other countries.
Me
The
either.
just U.S. imperialism. Fuck all of that. But I'm totally in favor of paying taxes that make sure everybody has housing and food and education and health care. You know, the shit that's necessary to survive. Yeah. That.
Yeah. 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 Yep.
Yeah, I just saw, just old Joe is asking any thoughts on the other SCOTUS ruling. Yeah, lots of them, probably more than we can get into tonight. We'll probably have to save that subject for next week because we were going to discuss that tonight. But the whole overturning of, Miranda rights, things like that, of like, oh, you're no longer required to let somebody know what their fucking rights are when they're being arrested. That's fucked. When it comes to the concealed carry stuff, I have so many thoughts on that. I personally am a gun owner, and I'm all for, actual responsible gun ownership.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
goes back to that right to not be harmed. If I have the right to protect myself from harm, so does everyone else.
Sure.
But as far as getting into another deep dive on that, I don't think that's going to happen tonight because it's already 11 o'clock out there.
Yeah.
on the Coast.
I gotcha.
We've been at it for a few hours. If you have some thoughts on that, by all means, Zach.
I mean, I guess my overall thought is just like any right, it should come with responsibilities to balance that. Your right to own a gun should stop if you are proving to be a danger to other people. If you are, say, a spousal abuser, which would prevent 40% of the U.S. police force from ever owning a gun, which I'm okay with. If that's the way that we get rid of all the worst of the worst cops, sounds like a win-win to me. So yeah, basic things like that. Requiring people to carry insurance, requiring people to lock their guns up, especially if they have children. I think these are some reasonable measures. Limiting the magazine that you're allowed to carry on a rifle. I think that's okay. Even if you're using it for self-defense, there's only so many rounds that you really would need. So I think there's some reasonable stuff that we could probably do. Closing gun loopholes for purchasing them at like gun shows and stuff like that. Yeah, there's stuff we could do. Go ahead. It sounds like you had something to say.
I am of a different train of thought when it comes
Sure.
to magazines, because, I mean, even if you are limited to 10-round magazines, what's to stop you from having 50 of those magazines and just swapping them out real quickly? And one of the things that I've seen lately, that I absolutely agree with, I wish I had the meme pulled up to be able to show you guys, with the question being posed of why do you need a 30-round magazine? And here comes 30 plus fucking neo-Nazis piling out of the back of a U-Haul truck. Shit like that is why. Or a crowd of fucking KKK coming at you, gonna fucking kill you. And when it comes down to it, even when it comes to like the Second Amendment clearly stating that, your right to bear arms is inherent in case you need to defend life against a tyrannical government too. And now granted, do we have the same firepower as them? Fuck no. But do we need to cut that back even further so you literally stand no fucking chance? Not necessarily.
Okay. So a few thoughts come to mind with that. I'm thinking of mutual aid disaster relief when they were defending mostly black folks in New Orleans after Katrina, as well as the Deacons for Liberation. I can never remember their name correctly. Deacons for Liberation and Self-Defense, something to that effect, who were standing up to the KKK with their guns. In both cases, merely just brandishing your weapons at these bands of armed racists was enough to scare them off. Because when it comes down to it, racists are cowards. And as soon as any force is shown against them, it doesn't matter if you have 30 rounds or just, a pump action shotgun or a revolver with 6 rounds capability. I think it's enough to make them think twice. And I mean, because there's endless potential scenarios you could come up with where you might need something that big. And even in the case of like a mass shooting incident, sure they could just switch the clips or switch the rounds again, but that breaks the time a little bit. That gives just a little bit of a time frame to get away, to attack them if you're close enough to. So I think there's arguments in both directions that can be reasonable. But I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do that most people could agree with, I think.
Yeah. One of the things that's been getting discussed a lot is raising the age limit to be able to buy a high-powered rifle. I can get behind that. I don't think anybody who is fucking immature as shit and has no self-control should be accessing any kind of fucking weapon, let alone a high-capacity rifle. So raising that age limit to be able to buy those weapons to 18 or from 18 to 21 or 25, I would totally get behind that, because that's who we're seeing doing like these mass shootings at schools and stuff, is mostly young men in either their older teens or very early 20s who don't have the fucking tools in their toolbox to deal with life on life's terms. No, I don't want them having guns. If you're 18 and you just need something simple for hunting for food because, you live in BFE, okay, cool. You can do that with a bolt action 22.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't need
something high powered though. Right. And that too, you bringing up the idea of this so commonly being young, angry white males, I think that gets to the really, if we really want to solve the root of the problem with these mass shootings, we need to deal with, for one thing, domestic abuse, because a lot of mass shooters that are not teenagers tend to have a pretty clear history of domestic abuse. So we need to look at that. And then we need to look at these things like the alt-right pipeline that are radicalizing these young white men into believing that they have no other options in their life, that the biggest impact they can have on the world is to go out in this blaze of glory, mowing down any innocent person they can come across. So, I mean, and there's a reason that they are not, that they tend to target schools too. It's because you have the people with the absolute least ability to fight back. You have children, right? They're not going into the middle of, say, an MMA arena and starting to shoot round after round against a bunch of, jacked up guys who are ready to fight anything that moves. So that too shows the cowardice of the mentality and the idea that what they really want is to have an impact on the world. It's just that they've been conditioned through whatever they've been exposed to online to believe that that is the best they can hope for. That it's kind of like this black pill mentality where the world is hopeless. Things are never going to get better. All you have a shot at is making the news in this way.
And it's sad and pathetic. To address what just old Joe said here, he says if you can vote and go to war, you should be able to buy a beer and an AR. I don't disagree with that. However, I do think that the age should also be raised for being recruited into the military too. Because right now,
straight out of high school, jeez.
Yeah, we have recruiters who are exploiting the fuck out of little kids in high school and just going into college and showing up at their schools and setting up tables and going, hey, would you like to join the military? This is the only way you can get socialism of having housing and health care and maybe enough money to buy food. You might still qualify for food stamps. Just don't wear your uniform to apply for them type shit, and exploiting children who have no concept really of what they're signing up for and being sent overseas to go murder a bunch of fucking people and come back damaged, and we can't figure out why we have I believe it was 22 a day veterans committing suicide.
Just tragic.
It's because they are children being recruited to go fight war. I don't care if you're legally an adult at 18 or not. You are not emotionally, psychologically done developing. You are still a kid. And I think that you should have some time to, come to terms with the world itself before you get trained, armed, and thrown into a fucking war zone. There's no excuse for these motherfuckers having free reign to exploit the fuck out of children and be like, well, I know, your family can't afford to send you to college, but we'll send you to college if you just sign away your life, your bodily autonomy, become property of the government for a few years.
Literally property of the government,
Die in the process to possibly get education. Fuck all of that. You should have to be like 25 before you can join the military too.
Yep. Yeah, it's again one of those vestiges of slavery that's still left over. Signing up for the military, or especially being conscripted into the military, is basically no different than indentured servitude, which is just a prettier word for slavery that you agreed to, which almost no one agrees to unless they don't have a better choice. Unless the alternative is to likely die.
I highly doubt the majority of the people who have even volunteered for the military would have done so if it wasn't out of absolute fucking necessity, because of living in poverty and going, well, fuck, if this is the only way that I can get college paid for and have housing and health care, I guess I'll take it. Yeah, no. That's so fucking unethical of our government to exploit. But again, comes back to the who, what, where, when, how, and why it was built and who for, and it was never built to benefit the common folk.
Yep. only to use their resources to get better trade deals and protect the overseas assets of the rich landowners and property owners. So, I mean, that's what all wars are fought over.
Yep.
Control of resources.
Absolutely.
So
it's fucking sad and pathetic once again.
it is.
We can do so much better. Our trillions a year in war spending would be much better spent making sure that people have housing and food and healthcare and education.
Unquestionably. But the ones in power, the ones that benefit the most from the system, are terrified of that sort of a scenario. It's just like when our country did a general strike, they cracked down immediately with the military. I can't remember what decade it was. I think it was the 20s, maybe the 30s. But people just had enough. They organized a general strike, and they sent in the military to force people back to work. They said, you are destroying our way of life. They dropped all the pretenses. Then the mask came all the way off. And they said, basically, the system is, you guys work for us, and you guys give us everything that you make. And that's how it's got to be. So you're trying to destroy that. Now we have to force you back into the system at gunpoint. They had no problem with doing that. So, but that also shows just how much power we all do have, should we choose to wield it together. We could bring this country to its knees and get all of the sort of legislation that we wanted, all of the reforms. We could start an entirely new system if we just got together and said, that's it. We don't want this anymore. It wouldn't even take an overthrow of any government. All it takes is for enough people to say, I am withholding my labor. I refuse to be a part of this anymore. And if we did it all together and we supported one another through it with whatever food and other resources we had, there's not enough enforcement to force hundreds of millions of people back to work. And we could have anything we want. We could start any new system that we wanted.
Exactly. That's why I'm glad to see, at least over the last year and a half, there being this snowball effect when it comes to workers going on strike, as well as having solidarity with people from completely different industries also going on strike. That's the kind of things that we need to see, is labor itself coming together and going, we're all saying, fuck this shit. You cannot have our labor or that industry's labor or this other industry's labor or any of these others until you concede to our fucking demands of actually having livable wages, housing, food, medical care, decent fucking benefits, a significant amount of paid time off.
Yeah, right.
You shouldn't use your fucking vacation hours for sick days, etc., things like that. Like, no, there shouldn't be a limit on sick days. If your health goes down the shitter,
right,
what the fuck are you supposed to do with an employer who's like, well, you have 3 sick days this year, fuck you.
Oh God, especially for customer service jobs like the food industry. Right. Who wants to go to a Burger King when the guy's like sneezing directly into the fryer? Who wants anyone handling their food knowing that they have a communicable disease? It should be illegal for people to come to work, and your employer should be forced to pay you to stay home.
Yep. It's one of those things that at least some areas of Europe have actually gotten their shit together with. Like in France, if you're dealing with a serious illness like cancer, they don't go, well, you can have today off for your chemo treatment, but you better be back to work tomorrow. Fuck no! And go, wait a minute, no, you need to handle your treatment, and then you need to continue to heal up afterwards. So I'm literally, the doctor's orders are go on vacation. You need to go to the beach and relax, get some sunshine, get some rest, get good food in you, and heal the fuck up. You get the next 4 to 6 months off. We'll see you when you're done healing. We want you on like, the top of your game, not coming back in here still feeling deathly ill let's get your health back together first. And we're going to pay you this entire time too. You're not going to lose your house. You're not going to lose your car. You're not going to fucking lose any of your shit. We just want you to get better. That's how shit should be.
It's amazing. It's almost as if there's more to life than just punching a clock, making other people rich, and working yourself into an early grave. Maybe some other things matter too. Just an idea.
Right. You're supposed to work to live, not live to work.
Absolutely. Well said. My God, this country has been just so propagandized into the fetishization of the Sigma grind set, and anytime you're not working, not being productive, it's that word that comes up again. You're not productive. You're not productive. Even on your days off, if you're not grinding, what are you even doing with your time? You don't deserve to have nice things. It's the entire Gary V mentality of just commoditizing your every waking moment.
Right.
And it's sick. It's disgusting. This is unhealthy for anybody.
Absolutely. You are far more valuable than just your fucking productivity.
Absolutely. Productivity doesn't show how good of a neighbor you were, how loving you were to friends and family in their times of need. How you consoled someone when they lost a loved one. None of that shows up on a balance sheet.
Right.
And yet it's kind of some of the most important things.
Right. Maybe your resume and your references should include the people in your neighborhood and your family, your friends, etc., whose lives you've had a positive impact on. Because when Joe Schmo down the fucking street was out of work with cancer, you made sure to take them fresh vegetables you grew in your fucking garden. And when this other person on the next block over needed surgery, you were like, hey, do you need some help with your child care while you recover? Things like that. That speaks much more volumes about your value as a person and not a fucking commodity.
That's right.
Than the shit that employers look for.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about it this way, what do people put on their tombstones? Do they put, well, he moved 30 extra units of this particular stock in Q4 of 1997, and boy, what a great guy he is for that. Do they put, my God, he managed to do 2 full-time jobs and juggle those for 40 years. What an amazing American he was.
Right.
Or do they put, loving father, treasured friend, kind to animals?
Right. Exactly.
Seems like those might be the most important things and what we're supposedly all working for.
Right. The things that actually matter in life.
Right.
Not how much you lifted the fucking profit margin of the corporation that wage enslaved you for 30 to 40 years. Like, come the fuck on. Come the fuck on.
Right.
Fuck.
I don't know.
Fucking ridiculous. I can't stand the way the society works.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just getting back to kind of our central topic for the night and just the way the country is heading. I don't know. I just have this sinking feeling, like this sense of dread that somehow something has shifted and this is different than what has come in the past. Like I know that video that I put on earlier, he was trying to be optimistic, saying we're almost there, we're almost doing the stuff, but this seems like the first domino of many that are likely to fall, because clearly no one is there to break the chain of them. No one is there, and the Democrats are just standing idly by. I fear that everything is going to unravel in the next few years, really. I'm really scared of where this country is going.
Me too.
I feel we are marching straight down that path to fascism, and the only thing that is going to stop that is going to be a huge populist left-wing movement full of people, leaders of every type that are actually proposing real solutions not just Democratic platitudes, not just, well, we'll do it at the next election cycle, but like really saying, here's our plan, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to help you directly, and we can do this. So if that doesn't happen, it seems like we're just slipping away, and I mean, that's the end of the pretense of democracy in America, one way or another. And I hope I'm wrong.
I hope so too, but sadly, this whole situation of what went down with the Supreme Court today makes me think of The Handmaid's Tale. It makes me
I'm right there with you.
of the way the Nazis operated.
This is that slow creep.
Are we looking at women's headstones starting to list things like, man, she really served the country by birthing 17 babies? Ah! Fuck!
Right. No, because I mean, if you think about it, I was mentioning this earlier, but like, if you look at the time since Reagan, there has been a gradual progression of at least social stuff. You know, gay people getting the right to marry each other, more parity for pay between men and women. It's certainly not all the way there yet, but there's been social progress at a slow trickle at the very least. I mean, setting aside the fact that like I said earlier, that you know, the working conditions and workers' rights have been eroded this entire time. At least we could say things are progressing socially. But here, this is a clear step backwards, and this hasn't really happened in the past 40 years. And now they're immediately racing to all these other issues that they want to follow that up with, taking away more rights for no good reason. And people are jumping on board with this. And it seems as though there's two Americas that are starting to divide from one another. There's the America that has compassion, cares about workers, cares about people, that wants a good life for everyone. And then there's the America that just wants everyone who doesn't believe in them, like them, and who doesn't look like them and think like them to just die.
Right.
And they would not care if that happened.
No, they would be celebrating because they're literal human waste.
Yeah.
Because of the way that they think.
So, I mean, I hate to give Tim Pool any credit at all, but when he talks about how we're coming to the precipice of civil war, I think he gets the reasoning why wrong. Like, he brings up stupid ass issues like, oh, wokeism, and oh, Mr. Potato Head is now just Potato Head. All these dumb, like, really side cultural issues. But I think the conclusion is more and more shaping up to be right, that there's going to be a breaking point, and there's going to be two directions. I mean, Texas is already talking about holding a vote on secession.
I mean, if they're going to secede, can we at least get all the good people out of Texas and send the rest of the human waste bigots to Texas to live there in their fucking bigotry, isolated? What the fuck?
I mean, I would be totally fine if we could do that sort of, you know, almost a prisoner exchange of people. Send all the people that really want to have this super reactionary life all down to one section of the country, and have all the people that are not like that and just want to live their life and not be persecuted for being who they are come up to a different part of the country. And then we could have a divide. I don't know that I would be so much against that, because, you know, all the reactionaries are going to eat themselves alive in the next 10 years anyway. They never stop dividing and devouring. That's their entire MO. You know, had the Nazis kept going, once they got to only them, people that looked like them in Europe, they would have gone to the blue-eyed, blonde-haired thing, and they would have started slaughtering people that didn't fit that model. And then they would have found some other flaw to focus on and put all their society's problems on, and they would have started slaughtering those people that didn't fit that. It never ends with reactionaries. It's a death cult mentality. But at least they'd all be doing it to themselves, more or less voluntarily. And we could offer like amnesty to people who are like, oh fuck, I didn't understand how any of this would actually work in real life. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Sure, come back to, you know, rational
Normal
America.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, the problem is that it wouldn't play out that way. The people that are the most vulnerable, that have the least ability to move and get away from these reactionaries, would just be kind of left to fend for themselves. So
It'd be cannon fodder.
there's no good end to our country breaking apart in any way. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all fucked. It's all so fucked.
It
you
is.
know, and it's one of those things. Okay, like I forget now if it's Vermont or New Hampshire. One of the two literally has it in the paperwork from when they even agreed to join the union that they can secede at any point in time.
Oh yeah, I believe that's Vermont.
And because of that, there's a lot of white supremacists that are just gathering there, and you know, they love it there. It's already 98% white, and they're steadily killing off anybody with pigment there to try to get it to a full 100. And a lot of them are moving there right now just for that fact that they could, in fact, create their own fucking ethno-state there and easily concede. You know, and it's like, whatever, if you want to be that kind of white trash, go isolate yourself. Fine. But leave the rest of us the fuck out of it.
That's the other part too. Like you have to come to some sort of agreement, you know, like whatever it is that we're just not, if we're going to separate that way, we don't attack each other. Still may have trade, but that's as far as it goes.
Right. Go isolate yourself out there, fine. But stop coming down into New York, into New Jersey, into Connecticut, etc., where there's a substantial, you know, number of the populace that are not white and trying to start your shit.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the real big divide. It's like the left is like, live however you want to live. That's totally fine as long as you're not hurting anyone else. The right is like, everyone has to live the way that I live, or I want them to die, or be so severely suppressed that they will never have a voice again. So I mean, it's okay. You want to live as a Christian. You want to bring your children up Christian. I mean, there can definitely be some abusive scenarios in that, but in general, raising your children with whatever values and religion you have, that is fine. I don't think any left is against that sort of thing. But that's not good enough for them. It has to all be like them, or they just can't take it.
Right. On those lines, we would also have to implement a clause of there being some amnesty for the children of those people.
Oh, hell yes.
Let me the fuck out of here. This shit's not right, not normal, nope. Bye. Like, sure, you may escape your Christo-fascist state.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too. In a scenario where we divided up the entire country and all the reactionaries went and built like the highest, thickest border wall they could muster around their entire territory, well, I mean, they're just going to decline. I mean, the only reason that we have a population sustaining its numbers is that we have immigration. So if they're just going to shut down all the immigration into their area, in a few generations, like, there's not going to be that many of them left anyway, because they just, for some reason, can't do it enough to sustain themselves.
Right. Not to mention all the inbreeding would just result in a lot of non-viable fucking fetuses. So, I mean, yeah. Isolationism has never resulted in good things.
True.
You know.
True. Yeah. Just look at the Habsburgs. You know,
right.
the entire Habsburg jaw and
right where they could
incest.
They couldn't even latch on as infants to feed, so a lot of them died that way. And the ones that did make it to adulthood had diseases like hemophilia, where it's like, don't scrape your knee, you'll die. Things like that. a lot of it comes down to just utter ignorance of not realizing that you produce the healthiest offspring by breeding with somebody who is genetically different from you as possible.
Absolutely.
Not by looking for those who are as close to you as possible.
I mean, anyone who knows anything about dogs knows that purebreds almost always have some weird genetic thing. Like golden retrievers have hip dysplasia a lot. All the French bulldogs and the pugs, all those really, sort of snorty dogs,
Breathing
can
problems,
probably have
congestion.
breathing problems and can barely give birth on their own, if at all. I think French bulldogs only can give birth through cesarean section. Like, pure breeding leads to incredible genetic weakness. It's never an asset.
That. Try convincing these fucking white supremacists of that. They think they're keeping the bloodline pure, and it's like, you're keeping it fucked up.
Well, that's one of their many contradictions, is that they are clearly the superior genetically race of everything, and yet somehow they're constantly foiled by every other race who's constantly suppressing them and stymieing them in every turn. Somehow they just can't get beyond all these other races that constantly oppress them, but they're clearly the superior race. Like, it's just it's like, next week I think I want to do Umberto Eco's fascism, because I think that this is kind of a timely part to go through all that, because that's one of the signs of fascism, is you are being forced to believe contradictory things. That's a feature of fascism, not even a bug. A lot of times they use it as purity tests. It's like, do you really believe in our cause? Oh yeah? Believe this completely outrageous, obviously contradictory set of beliefs. Okay, well you do? Okay, that means that you're completely controllable. We can make you do whatever we want now, because we've convinced you that the earth is flat, or that we are both simultaneously the strongest race and the weakest race, that we always have to fight out. So, like, yeah, contradictions are a feature of fascism, not a bug.
Right. It literally comes down to even like the studies that have proven a link between having ethnocentric fucking, I don't know, ideology and very low intellect. Like, you're clearly not very fucking smart if you buy into this shit.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm sorry, I just have to take a moment to point out that, like, the photos that they published of all of these fucking white supremacists they pulled out of the fucking U-Haul.
Oh, yeah.
So many of them look like Cro-Magnon.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me, troglodyte, you're superior to what?
Right. Well, I think too, there's just something about just having an entire ideology based around hating people that it just makes you unattractive. Just, I mean, I don't like to, I'm not even trying to body shame people. It's just, it does something to you. It damages people in a physical way as well as in a mental and emotional way.
Right. And it's like, it's just one of those things. I mean, I don't like body shaming and shit either, but you can see the inbreeding in their bone structure.
Mm-hmm.
You really can.
Yeah.
And you can see it in their lack of intellect too, that it's like, okay, motherfucker, like, to wrap one's head around even holding that ideology, it's like presenting them with facts doesn't do any good, because
oh no,
it's like playing chess with a fucking bird that's just gonna shit on the board and flip it and be like, I would. It's kind of self-defeatist to even try, but
yeah, it just goes, it's another one of those contradictions. Simultaneously, they believe they are the smartest people in the world. They know the real truth about all these conspiracies, all these plots against them, and yet they will just believe, they will swallow any other narrative than the official one, any other thing. Oh, aliens started the fire? It's got to be, because I don't believe the official government narrative. It must have been the Jewish space lasers, because it was just too easy for natural conditions to produce this. Oh, it couldn't have been the MAGA people that did the January 6th insurrection. It has to have been Antifa.
Antifa.
Because that's right. They must have come in with dressed up like us and persuaded all of us. Simultaneously, we're the smartest people in the world, but we're easily led by Antifa and drag. So
right, and it's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
what?
right.
Like,
These amazing
I
contradictions.
had to sit people down who I personally know and some of whom I'm related to, who actually bought that fucking line of, it wasn't really the right wingers, it was Antifa. And I'm like, Antifa means anti-fascist. Antifa is not going to come out and try to do a coup to protect a fascist who
Right.
wants to reign as emperor. That's
Right.
literally the opposite of what Antifa would do. The seldom few Antifa who were there that day were there with their cameras on to expose the fucking right-wing extremists.
I mean,
They were the
Antifa-
ones charging in there sniffing shoes.
Antifa as a movement wasn't even a thing in the U.S. before the rise of Donald Trump. It was a European thing, but the movement had not really made it to the U.S. at that point. It was in reaction to a fascist coming to power. So, but right, why would they spend all that? Just what, to make them look bad? But then, like, that would also mean that they were there participating in it. Otherwise, who are they making look bad? Just themselves? And like, it's so weird that no Antifa person has ever been brought up on charges. But a lot of people have been brought up on charges, and time after time, it's just regular people or members of the Proud Boys or Patriot Front or any of these groups. Somehow there's no big, uncovering of Antifa being responsible for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the same time they'll say, "Oh, but it was justified anyway because there was a stolen election, so it was the right thing to do, but we were led into it by the wrong people, but they were just trying to make us look bad, but instead they just uncovered the real truth." It's like you flip back and forth so many times. I don't know how these people keep their own conspiracy straight.
I don't know. Mental gymnastics.
I mean, it's just like, yeah, the whole floor routine of mental gymnastics with them.
Uh-huh. It's like, how the fuck did you manage to leap to such a conclusion? That must have been like a triple flip, fucking spin in the air. How did you land that?
I like that mad scientist, Mike. That's no insurrection. They're just playing honky konk.
Pretty much.
When they were climbing up that wall there and they kept falling because they're idiots that didn't know how to go around and use stairs.
Right. Fucking morons. And they're the same ones calling for a wall while people are actually at the border wall making fun of it, having races to see who can climb it fastest. And they're much better at it than insurrectionists were at the walls of the White House.
Their mentality has not evolved since the Dark Ages, when like walls actually did something to keep people out. And even then, when there was like castles and stuff, there was all kinds of engineering that went into place to undermine the walls, make them collapse, to scale the walls. Like,
I've watched the videos of people racing to climb the wall.
Oh, I'm sure.
Timing themselves, and we're talking a matter of seconds without a ladder.
Well, geez, have they never heard of tunnels, planes, or boats?
That too. It's like you realize there's a million other ways to cross a border than just walking on this sand here.
Do they think these people are so motivated to get out of their home countries, mostly in Central America, where we have fucked things over, and that's the reason that they are coming up here, because of the right-wing death squads that we have trained that are now terrorizing them. But even leaving that aside, obviously it's bad enough in their country to leave Central America, walk all the way across Mexico. Do they think they're going to get to the border and say, "Oh shit, there's a wall, I better just go home"?
Fuck no.
No! Obviously they have some determination to make a several 100 or 1,000-mile journey. They're not just going to go home because there's a wall sitting there.
Right. Not to mention the fact that, we are talking about indigenous people. Who the fuck are some colonizers to tell indigenous people where they can fucking travel on Turtle Island? Like,
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, too, is that for a whole lot of people, they never crossed the border crossed them. We stole part of Mexico from the people that were running it at the time. That's where California came from. That's where uh, big portions of Texas came from. Um, yeah, the whole Southwest used to be part of Mexico. We took it because we could, because we were the better colonizers, apparently, in terms of efficiently killing people. Um, so it's all just so jumbled and incoherent, but that's reactionary.
yeah. What the fuck, America?
Yeah.
And yes, I'm pronouncing that with all 3 K's in there.
Merc.
Yep. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What a
right.
shit show. What a fucking
Absolutely.
shit show.
It is. It is. All right.
Shit.
Well, it's. Oh yeah. I think we're going to head off to bed as well now. So
Right on.
this is a fun time. Glad I could get back together with all you on your own show. Finally, it's been a long time since we've collaborated this way, so that's been good.
Yes, too long. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Talia,
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. Say goodbye, Amanda. She's saying goodbye.
Bye.
She's waving from off camera.
I'm gonna have trouble about my feet.
Oh.
I'll break everything today.
Oh, she didn't have to put herself in pain to come back over. I just wanted to say good night.
Oh no, she's going to head to brush her teeth anyway. So.
Okay.
Ew, what is that?
All right.
I don't know.
Well, you guys have an awesome night. Thank you both for joining us.
You too.
Thank you to everyone out there. Our numbers actually climbed back up in the last half hour.
Oh, nice. I haven't. You know, I don't usually see the stream from this side. What have the numbers been like tonight? It seems like there's been a whole lot of interaction, so that's been great.
Well, the only ones reporting on here are the ones that are directly linked to the ones that the channels that we're streaming to.
Yeah.
But there was also a ton more earlier that were viewing
cool.
via your channels and Andy's too. So I'm curious what the whole numbers are. But
I think Andy probably has the biggest following of all of us. He has like over 1,000 followers on his Facebook page, and like he gets a good showing every time. It's a really great show. Y'all should check it out. Poor Pearl's Almanac. There, you know, for We Are Many, Bread Theory, Poor Pearl's Almanac, all members of Left Signal Boost TV. Just go to facebook.com/Left Signal Boost TV, and you can find streams from all of these great shows. I'm gonna. Oh, I can't link it in the chat, but maybe someone could.
I'll do that right now. It's facebook.com/Left Signal Boost TV. There.
And if anyone watching has a show themselves, any sort of leftist thing you do, it could just be an art project, it could be streaming, it could be a podcast, whatever you want. Come to the page, sign up. We're happy to always bring in new leftist people and just help work together to push back against the algorithm that favors the likes of Ben Shabibo and what was that Matt Walsh, the guy who did the fucking What Is a Woman thing for the Daily Wire recently. My God, I feel like we need to cover that at some point, but he's just such a disgusting man. He's just an outright fascist, and on this huge anti-trans crusade. But yeah, so yeah, let's push back against the likes of them. Together, we've all been able to build our audiences a lot more. James, Natalie, I think you guys found out about me through that, and I've had a lot of really dedicated people following through that. It's really been great. And then we have these collaborations that have been popping up more and more since I started reaching out to people and trying to bring them in to all stream and post in one place. So it's been really good.
It's been a beautiful collaboration and still steadily growing. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Have a good night.
And for those of you watching, if you'd like to tune in tomorrow, it'll be, let's see, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I had to think for a minute because I'm out in Arizona. We'll be airing the class from the Hassan Shakur Political Education Program offered by the United Panther Movement, the new African Black Panther Party, and the White Panther Party. And then I believe on Monday, if you tune in to Zach's channel, Bread Theory, we will be continuing our reading of Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, where we dissect the fuck out of all of the fuckery and shit show that led us to where we are today. As for tonight, thank you all for joining us. Much love. All power to the people. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Didn't matter when they sold the devil guns. Didn't matter when they played us drugs. Didn't matter when they stole your mother's sons. Now everyone's out of their mind. Black bullshit, these unemployment lines. Don't know the casual to the corporate crimes. To the color of a little one is told no peace of mind. The only one that matters is the one who's falling better than your grandkids here to joy. When you watch them, their reaction to every little inconvenience soul. Some public is metamorphosis to until the status quo.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. Yes, everybody learn how to use